Chapter 563. The dominant ancestor gazing at the distant and majestic supreme sect. Yitsong's eyes brimmed with nostalgia as he murmured to himself, "I've finally come back. Compared to before, it indeed looks more like a holy land of the human world." A weathered voice emerged from the ancient Azure Tower. "Regarding the supreme sect, I too am quite interested. What kind of sect is it that could attract the protection of supporting Tao Sword Venerable?" "Heaven-supporting ancestor," Yitsong replied. "But the supporting Tao Sword Venerable has already left the supreme sect. Perhaps even he has grown tired of it." He had visited the heaven-repairing platform and felt the vast sword intent of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Thus, he had long been an admirer of the Venerable. "Everything should have a limit. Do not be too extreme," heaven-supporting ancestor said with emphasis. Yitsong did not reply, his eyes only growing more complex. He recalled the scene before he left the supreme sect, arguing with his master in the Third Medicine Valley, insisting he hadn't harmed his fellow disciples. Even though his senior sister testified for him, their master remained unconvinced. To appease the rage within the sect, his master had him leave the supreme sect first. After his departure, his sister was murdered. She was his only kin, whom he swore to protect in front of their parents' tombstones. Knowledgeable of this truth, he felt as though the sky had collapsed. He sought justice from his master but was stonewalled, and to this day, that vengeance had not been claimed. He hated his master for not taking a stand for him, and he hated the supreme sect even more. Although it was called a holy land, it was really dominated by influential families, and without a powerful backing, it was hard to gain a foothold. This time, he was determined to demand justice. After obtaining justice, he planned to leave far behind, venturing into a vaster world, never to return in this lifetime. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. Of course, there was another thought in his mind. That was to see his senior sister one more time. Thinking of his senior sister, the chill in his eyes eased. "How dare you, Yitsong? As a disciple of the supreme sect, do you truly intend to betray your own sect?" A majestic voice rang out, thunderous and filled with divine might. Yitsong did not reply. Instead, quickening his pace, his aura suddenly burst forth. Mana gathered behind him, forming a Dharma aspect of towering mountains and rivers, sun and moon shining brightly, and vast rivers rushing, from which the essence of heaven and earth gushed out. The clouds ahead were pierced through as cultivators of the supreme sect, armed with magical treasures, rushed out, rapidly surrounding Yitsong, ready for battle. Rumble, the outer sect city shook, and Guan watched as the city-protecting array rose. Pedestrians on the streets hurried along, disturbed by Yitsong's arrival. Guan turned and headed toward the heaven-repairing platform. He could foresee that Yitsong would not bring disaster to the supreme sect. Once Yitsong met Long Qing, and they, as master and disciple, broke ties, Yitsong would completely sever his karma, and then truly embark on his own path in life. The primordial chaos body was no simple matter, a notch above Zhu Zai's primordial cause and effect body. Of course, that was just the physique. The potential of a cultivator still depended on their comprehension. The feud between Yitsong and Long Qing amused Guan, but he did not support either of their perspectives. Suddenly, he thought of Xianxia, who had also severed her familial ties. Such were the matters of the human world, always with its imperfections. Xianxia had long returned to the yin-yang immortal domain, which was not part of the great heaven and earth, and remained in the cosmic void of the universe. Guan occasionally kept an eye on Xianxia, who was striving to reach the Tao fruit realm. Despite the news of the reshaping of the Great Thousand World, Xianxia had no intention of coming back to see Gu and Gu and could hear her aspirations. She wanted to reach the same realm as Gu and before she would meet him again. Naturally, he respected her competitive spirit. For the human world, 10,000 years was a long time, but for Xianxia, especially in seclusion, it felt short, so she did not feel it had been long since she saw Guan thinking of Xianxia. Guan then thought of Yulon. Having entered reincarnation for so long, Yilan had not yet reincarnated in the celestial spirit great world. Guan decided to spend time looking for her next. With the Tao Destruction Destiny Seal, as a Tai Ching Golden Immortal, finding Yilan should not be difficult for Guan. As Guan thought this, he walked down one street after another. He finally arrived in front of the Heaven Repairing Platform. The Heaven Repairing Platform maintained its original appearance with many figures on it. Zhuo Yijian was still guarding the heaven-splitting axe, sitting cross-legged in mid-air, exuding a celestial demeanor. The pressure of the Immortal Path ultimate treasure enveloped Outer Sect City, but Zhuo Yijian kept his eyes closed, an air of calmness that would not change even if the heavens fell. Looking at Zhuo Yijian, Guan felt reassured. Zhuo Yijian was definitely the most devoted person to him, even more devout than profound, mysterious Zhenren from the Mountain God Temple. Unless his family faced trouble, he had guarded the Heaven Repairing Platform for over 20,000 years, protecting the honor of supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Guan also had not treated him unfairly, occasionally using Tao intent to guide him in sword enlightenment. Now, Zhuo Yijian was also in the loose immortal realm, his sword Tao achievement not much less than Xinchuan. Once the inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe was handed over, Guan would give Zhuo Yijian a chance to follow him. Guan had steeds, disciples, and demon pets, but he lacked a sword attendant by his side. At this moment, a figure appeared out of nowhere in front of the heaven-splitting axe, and the disciples who were queuing up were about to verbally abuse the newcomer. But upon recognizing who it was, they hastily bent over to salute. The visitor was none other than the sect leader of the supreme sect, Long Qing. Long Qing paid no attention to the surrounding disciples. He gazed at the heaven-splitting axe, remaining silent. Zhuo Yijian was still meditating mid-air. He glanced at Long Qing and then closed his eyes again. With a pat on the shoulder from his supporting Tao Sword Venerable and inheriting the sword intent, Zhuo Yijian held a very high status in the supreme sect. Even when facing Long Qing, he could act as a senior, and Long Qing did indeed respect him. Boom, boom, boom. The distant rumbling of thunder grew louder and louder. The oppression belonging to the Immortal Path ultimate treasure was approaching. Candlestar appeared out of nowhere beside Long Qing and said solemnly, "Behind him, there is someone with a higher cultivation level than me. The supreme sect cannot stop him. He is the foremost cultivator of the supreme sect, and below him, there is a huge gap in cultivation level." Hearing his words, Long Qing's expression did not change. Candlestar wanted to say more, but he suddenly turned his head. The city-protecting array of the Outer Sect City shattered abruptly, and a rainbow light came crashing down from the sky, forcing Candlestar to raise his palm and protect Long Qing and the surrounding disciples with his own mana. As the light dissipated and the Jin Shi overflowed, Yitsong revealed himself, with cracks appearing on the platform under his feet and stones flying. Zhuo Yijian opened his eyes. His gaze fell on the spot beneath Yitsong's feet, his sword brows furrowing tightly. Holding a green ancient tower, Yitsong ignored Candlestar. His gaze fell on Long Qing's back, and he said, "Master, long time no see." Long Qing slowly turned around. Facing his former disciple, his expression was calm, devoid of any emotion. Their eyes met, each seeing only the other. "What do you want?" Long Qing asked. Yitsong responded, "I seek justice. I want you, master, to publicly condemn the Chui family and avenge my sister." Long Qing said nothing, only quietly looked at him. Yitsong slightly tilted his chin upward, a cold light twinkling in his eyes. He said with a sneer, "It seems that after 9,000 years, the status of the Chui family in the supreme sect has risen ever higher. Master, you also can't bear to deal with them, can you?" Long Qing stared at him and said, "The one who murdered your sister was already executed. Do you really want the entire Chui family to join your sister in death? Do you know how many people are in the Chui family, and what the supreme sect would lose without them?" Yitsong stepped forward. The green ancient tower shone with a dazzling light. A strong wind rose from the ground. and his black robe fluttered intensely, enhancing the oppressive force he displayed. He is dead, but my sister, as a disciple of the supreme sect, died quietly. Is that really right? Moreover, that person was just a pawn. Who truly want to harm my sister, master? Do you really not know? Yi Tsong pressed aggressively, the aura of the green ancient tower making the heaven-repairing platform tremble. Candlestar couldn't help but yell out, "Enough! That member of the Chui family has long left the supreme sect. Do you expect the supreme sect to spend manpower to hunt him down? How vast is the world for your sister? How much should the supreme sect have to sacrifice for you to be satisfied?" The Chui family allowed the mastermind to escape and had the murderer executed. The supreme sect indeed had no way to deal with them, especially since the Chui family helped develop the sect, and now counted among the top 3 families within the sect. Candlestar often encountered such contradictions. What he could do was to have the murderer pay with his life, but it was impossible to completely eradicate them because the development of power needed to consider benefits. With this loud yell, the aura of profound yuan-free, immortal, surged toward Yi Tsong, making him slide backward. A phantom jumped out from the green ancient tower. This was an old Taoist with white hair. The heaven-supporting ancestor hovered in the air, looking down at Candlestar, and said, "Fellow Taoist, you should not belong to this great thousand world. Why are you so stubborn about the rules of the human world? If you consider interests, do you think it is worth offending me and a primordial chaos body for a family that oppresses the weak?" Seeing him appear, Candlestar's expression darkened, and he said, "I want to ask you too, with your high level of Tao practice, do you really think his stubborn nature won't bring him great disaster?" The heaven-supporting ancestor had no expression on his face and said, "This is his only request in this life, and as his teacher, I must help him. In the human world, a day as a teacher, a lifelong father. In the great thousand world, a teacher should protect his disciple more. I do not care what happens to him in the future. I just want to support him now." Hearing these words, Long Qing's expression changed. Zhuo Yijian looked at the heaven-supporting ancestor. He could feel the other's strength, but he was not concerned. The supporting Tao Sword Venerable had left many years ago, but Zhuo Yijian always felt that the old man was still watching over the supreme sect. As long as the sword intent of the heaven-repairing platform did not dissipate, Zhuo Yijian believed the supreme sect could not possibly fall. Yi Tsong, hearing the words of the heaven-supporting ancestor, felt a deep gratitude, but did not show it on his face. He looked at Long Qing, his eyes filled with disappointment. Once, he had respected this master so much that he even considered him a father. The strong stance of the heaven-supporting ancestor put great pressure on Candlestar. He could only look to Long Qing. "Say something. If it comes to a fight, I will risk my life to assist you. This guy is just a remnant soul. He cannot afford it." Candlestar said solemnly. Seeing the disappointment in Yi Tsong's eyes, Long Qing felt a bit confused. Had he really made a mistake? In his view, the supreme sect was the legacy left by his teacher and LV Baitian. He had to protect it well, so in his heart, the supreme sect was more important than his progeny and disciples. The heaven-supporting ancestor looked at Long Qing and said, "Destroying the Chui family would be as easy as flipping my hand, but what my disciple wants is your stance, Dragon Gate Master. Could it be that you want to involve the entire supreme sect because of past mistakes?" Chapter 564. The myth of the supreme sect entangled the entire supreme sect. Heaven-supporting ancestors' voice echoed throughout the supreme sect, allowing every single person within the sect to hear him loud and clear. In these days, the grudges between Yi Tsong and the sect had already been dug out by the disciples, and with the powerful Chui family already unpopular among some, the true story emerged against those who fanned the flames. Though they sympathized with Yi Tsong, they could not accept that he would jeopardize the whole supreme sect for a personal vendetta. They couldn't just give up resistance out of sympathy and wait for Yi Tsong to execute them, right? Heaven-supporting ancestors' words instead ignited the wrath of the supreme sect members, and more disciples flew toward the outer sect city. Longqing's expression also turned ice-cold. Yizong had brought up the master-disciple relationship, which indeed caused him regret, but with heaven-supporting ancestor threatening the entire supreme sect, the shame and regret in his heart were instantly replaced by murderous intent. He glared at heaven-supporting ancestor and said coldly, "Do you really think you can act recklessly within the supreme sect?" As he spoke, a trace of gray aura emanated from his eyes, making his whole persona appear even more eerie. He was not as advanced in cultivation level as heaven-supporting ancestor, but he had his own reliance. That was the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Zhou Yijian, seated cross-legged in midair, also spoke up. Right and wrong, grudges and favors can be discussed, but if you want to threaten the entire supreme sect, I advise you to take back these words. Otherwise, your cultivation level won't withstand the consequences of such karma. Seeing even a loose immortal so arrogant, heaven-supporting ancestor thought these people had gone mad. Wuxia world. Sight could it be they believed supporting Tao, sword venerable, was still protecting them? Heaven-supporting ancestors' divine sense enveloped the entire supreme sect and completely failed to detect the presence of supporting Tao, sword venerable, not to mention a presence comparable to candle stars. As heaven-supporting ancestor was thinking, figures descended from the sky, and Longqing's daughter Long Ye had also arrived. Seeing her, Yizong's eyes showed a subtle change. Long Ye looked at Yizong with a complex expression, faintly resentful, which made Yizong unable to look her in the eye. A handsome man in a gold-embroidered white robe stood in front of Longqing. He was tall, his long hair tied up in a crown, exuding an unbeatable elegance, the pride in his expression undeniable. Yizong, every debt has its debtor, every grievance its culprit. Master didn't support you as you wished, but if you honestly ask yourself, did Master mistreat you? Before you left the Supreme Sect, did you get less cultivation resources than I did? Despite conflicts with that disciple from the Chui family, you both vied for the same opportunity. He died. Wouldn't the Chui family think of you? Isn't it because of your lack of foresight? This handsome man was Longqing's son, Long Tongue, and he spoke with the fierce momentum of a wild beast. He stared intently at Yizong and said, "All you know is hatred, but what about the grace the Supreme Sect has shown you? Because of hatred towards one person, one family, you would involve the entire sect? Do you really think you are without guilt? Since you hold your sister in such high regard, why didn't you consider her when you were fighting? Did you think we are obligated to guard your sister for life, watching over her every moment?" These successive interrogations made Yizong furrow his brows. Heaven-supporting ancestor did not speak further. He had no personal grievance with the Supreme Sect. He wanted to see how Yizong would respond. In his view, Yizong should experience such a confrontation and come to a clear understanding of himself. The people who have been kind to you, you only demand more. By what right do you act this way? Long Tongue said forcefully, and even though heaven-supporting ancestor and immortal path ultimate treasure were mighty, he showed no fear and even took a step forward while speaking. Seeing Long Tongue's stance, Candlestar revealed a smile on his face. Even though Yizong had cultivated the primordial chaos body in Candlestar's eyes, he still didn't measure up to Long Tongue. Feel it's unfair? When Yizong was the favored one by Longqing, did Yizong ever consider how Long Tongue felt being neglected? Granted, Longqing was somewhat biased in his manner and relationships. The closer they were, the more he may have taken them for granted, mainly because his energy and resources were limited. In his view, there was no need to make a big effort to win over his own children. Perhaps, due to a lifetime of drifting from one life to the next, he cared deeply about how outsiders felt under his command. Candlestar didn't think such a fault was a big deal. The present issue wasn't about what Longqing did wrong. It was that he wasn't as strong as heaven-supporting ancestor. If he was stronger, would he have allowed heaven-supporting ancestor such insolence? More and more people appeared on the heaven-repairing platform, persuading Yizong, who had once shown peerless talent. It was too much of a pity for such a genius to become the supreme sect's enemy, especially when the conflict could be resolved. Why go to such lengths to settle the score? Yitsong watched his former sect friends and teachers, feeling somewhat swayed in his heart. But whenever he thought of his sister's death, he just couldn't let go. The very reason he had left the supreme sect with peace of mind was his belief that Master would take care of his sister. But instead of disciplining the Chui family, Master had let them kill his sister. Why should he? His master was the sect leader. Yitsong's anger and intent to kill burst forth in his heart, and the more people tried to persuade him, the more he hated. From the beginning to the end, the Chui family never showed up, and the supreme sect did not attempt to capture them. It was as if the Chui family were the victims. Master! Yitsong's voice was deep, drowning out all other noises between heaven and earth. Heaven's supporting ancestor and Long Qing both turned to look at him. Both were his masters, but one protected him while the other stood on the opposing side. Zhua Yijian sensed Yitsong's murderous aura, and his expression shifted. He was about to stand up when suddenly his gaze caught a figure, and he widened his eyes in excitement. He did not exclaim aloud, but quickly repressed his emotions. Heaven's supporting ancestor said expressionlessly, "Speak, whatever you wish to do, your master will support you." As his words fell, the temperature around plummeted. The ancient green tower constantly burst forth with rainbow light, casting clarity on everyone's faces. Yitsong took a deep breath and said, "Kill. Kill until, young man, watch your words. Some things can't be taken back," once said. A voice suddenly came from behind, and in an instant, Heaven's supporting ancestor, who was floating in midair, felt a hand press on his shoulder, and he found himself crashing down onto the heaven repairing platform. Having become a remnant soul, Heaven's supporting ancestor had almost forgotten what it felt like to physically fall. He instinctively turned his head and saw a figure standing behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder. Everyone was frightened by Gu An's sudden appearance, including Yitsong, whose eyelids twitched wildly. That someone had captured the mighty heaven-supporting ancestor so easily. Upon seeing Gu and Long Qing felt relieved, but then, thinking of something, his face showed a shade of shame. An elder who had lived through the last era widened his eyes in disbelief. Just as he was about to speak, he seemed to remember something and swallowed his words. It was also Candlestar's first time seeing Guin, but Gu An's figure felt familiar to him. Wait, wasn't this the mysterious figure who had suppressed the celestial spirit god? Candlestar instinctively glanced at Long Qing, and seeing his expression, felt even more certain about his guess. He breathed a sigh of relief while also feeling a bit nervous. This was the terrifying existence who had effortlessly suppressed the celestial spirit god. He couldn't fathom what such a being might be thinking. Heaven's supporting ancestor was unable to move. He couldn't even retract his immortal path, ultimate treasure. Waves of shock surged in his heart. Guin ignored Heaven's supporting ancestor beneath his hand and looked at Yitsong, saying, "Ultimately, your enemies are not here. Many things can be mended. You can avenge the dead, but you should also cherish the living." Yitsong saw Heaven's supporting ancestor pressed to the ground, unable to even turn around to look at him, and this filled him with fear. Guin looked so young, but gave off an unfathomable aura. He nervously asked, "And who are you?" He had voiced the question on everyone's mind. Afraid that Yitsong might offend Guin, Long Qing hastily barked, "Aren't you going to kneel and kowtow to your ancestor?" Ancestor? Yitsong stood there stunned, along with Long Tongue, Long Ya, and the other members of the Long family. This person was Long Qing's master? Wait, wasn't Long Qing's master? More and more people started to realize this point. Some gasped, while others trembled and knelt straight on the ground. Yitsong also came to the realization of Gu An's identity, his mind buzzing. He stood still, unsure of what to do. Gu An's left hand lifted, and with a wave through the air, a man appeared beneath his hand, his shoulder grasped by Guin. This man was handsomely dressed, his face handsome, but it carried a hint of malevolence. His expression was baffled, obviously startled by the sudden turn of events. When he saw Yi Tsang, his face greatly changed. Yi Tsang's notoriety spread far and wide, and he had always dreaded encountering Yi Tsang. Upon seeing him, Yi Tsang's eyes instantly reddened, his murderous intent irrepressible. "You?" Chui Xianlin had just opened his mouth when he was suppressed by a force. Guan couldn't be bothered to listen to their dispute. Through causal calculations, he could understand the truth. Chui Xianlin's brother fancied Longya, but Longya was close to Yi Tsang, leading to Chui Xianlin's brother warning Yi Tsang several times in private, which resulted in a grudge between the two men. The reason Chui Xianlin's brother died was that he attacked Yi Tsang and, in a twist of fate, was killed by a demon beast. After Yi Tsang left, Chui Xianlin returned to Supreme Sect only to discover his brother's death. He wanted Yi Tsang to suffer the same pain. The Chui family was also in distress. They were wary of Long Qing and Candlestar. Otherwise, they would not have sent Chui Xianlin away. Whether it was the Chui family or Yi Tsang, both paid a price. Supreme Sect had also discussed this matter with the Chui family, and ultimately, it was left in the past. But the Chui family never dared let Chui Xianlin return due to Candlestar's domineering actions. Guan stared at Yi Tsang and said, "You're avenging your sister, and your master helps you. That's all fine. But you must also allow your master's ancestor to help him. What do you think?" Yi Tsang, overwhelmed, was even more unsure of what to do. The thought that the person before him was the myth of Supreme Sect threw his mind into turmoil. Long Qing quickly approached Guan and said, "Master, Kanger is just a bit impulsive. It's all my fault as his master." He was worried that Guan was angry, always believing that Supreme Sect was Guan's soft spot, which was why he valued the sect so highly. Guan looked towards Long Qing with a calm gaze and said, "You've disappointed me." At those words, Long Qing's complexion drastically changed, and unable to maintain the air of sect leader, he knelt down anxiously. Seeing the sect leader kneel, all Supreme Sect cultivators knelt in unison, Zhou Yijian included. Chapter 565 Righteous Tao, Eternal Life. Outer Sect City fell into silence. The cultivators who came to support beheld the magnificent scene on the heaven-repairing platform and were utterly astounded, slowing their flying speed, their eyes fixed on Long Qing. The sect leader knelt. When they turned their gazes towards Guan, they couldn't see his true face, even feeling a sense of dizziness. Seeing his master speaking on his behalf, Yi Tsang also came back to his senses. Yes, if he could seek the help of heaven-supporting ancestor, why couldn't his ancestor help his master? The moment he saw Chui Xianlin, Yi Tsang actually began to let go. It was only because the dead could not be brought back to life that he blamed others. It was his own fault, after all. He had not protected his sister well. Who else could he blame? Yi Tsang took a deep breath, and facing Guan, he opened his mouth to say, "Thank you, ancestor, for capturing my enemy for me. I should avenge myself. Please do not be disappointed in my master." He, as the sect leader, was indeed helpless, and I, as his disciple, failed to resolve his worries and constantly caused him trouble. It is I who have let him down. When Long Qing knelt down for him, his hatred for Long Qing completely dissipated. Recalling what Long Tongue had said, he felt utterly ashamed. Now, he only wanted to kill Chui Xianlin and then leave. Guan looked at him and said, "Running away won't solve the problem. You've caused so much trouble for the Supreme Sect. Do you think you can just walk away?" Wuxia world. Sighed after hearing this. Yi Tsang opened his mouth, but didn't know how to respond to that question. Though he had not intentionally killed anyone, his forceful actions along the way had undoubtedly caused immeasurable losses to the Supreme Sect. After taking revenge, have a chat alone with your master. Let him decide your fate. Having said that, Guan pushed Chui Xianlin, whose mana had already been restrained, towards Yi Tsang. Now as weak as a mortal, once Chui Xianlin regained his freedom, he immediately ran towards the distance. However, Yi Tsang appeared out of nowhere in front of him, grabbed him by the throat, and lifted him high up. As Guan turned and walked away, he dropped a comment, "Zhuo Yijian, come with me." Hearing this, Zhuo Yijian became excited and hurriedly followed Gu An's steps. Just a few steps away, the two disappeared from the heaven-repairing platform. With Guan gone, Yitsong could no longer restrain his desire to kill. "Cui Xianlin, give me back my sister's life." Yitsong roared with all his might, venting thousands of years of accumulated hatred and pain. His voice echoed between heaven and earth. Countless cultivators of the supreme sect looked up, their minds shaken as they gazed at the figure on the heaven-repairing platform. What shook them was not Yitsong, but the person whom the sect leader had knelt before. Who in the world was he? Not only did he make the sect leader kneel, but he also made Yitsong let go of his hatred towards the supreme sect. Such a figure made the cultivators of the supreme sect's imagination run wild. The dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and the sunlight poured down, brightening Third Medicine Valley. Under an old tree, after Zhuo Yijian finished pouring tea for Guan, he sat down respectfully, facing Guan with a mix of anticipation and nervousness in his heart. Such a big event had happened, and Guan calling him away meant Guan had come specifically for him. Was he going to accept him as a disciple, or was he going to ask him to give up guarding the heaven-repairing platform? 2,000 years had passed. Too many people, including his son, had persuaded him to give up. He wavered at times, but still persevered. Only he knew how monotonous a life lasting thousands of years could be. Hearing Zhuo Yijian's inner thoughts, Guan laughed and said, "Don't be nervous. Although your guarding of the heaven-repairing platform doesn't hold special significance for me, your sincerity has touched me." Zhuo Yijian, flustered, let out an embarrassed smile. Guan continued with a smile, "I offer you two choices. One is to be my sword attendant, following me forever, and the other is to teach you the swordsmanship that leads to the peak of the world." "I wish to follow you," Zhuo Yijian answered without hesitation. Guan looked at him and reminded, "Following me? Can you forsake your family?" Zhuo Yijian said firmly, "I have essentially already forsaken them. I have done all I could to give them everything I could. Choosing to follow you is my choice for immortal cultivation. I believe that by following you, I can achieve true immortality." He expressed his needs without concealment. Such an attitude made Guan appreciate him even more. Guan smiled and said, "Once someone receives the legacy of the heaven-splitting axe, you can come to Wuxia." "Wuxia? What place is that?" Zhuo Yijian asked eagerly, suppressing his excitement. "That is my Taoist field." Having said that, Guan began to inquire about the development of the supreme sect over the years. He was actually aware of it already, but he wanted to understand the supreme sect from the mouths of its cultivators. Zhuo Yijian hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. Currently, the supreme sect has already become a holy land, still the leader of the righteous Tao. As the sect has grown, internal conflicts are inevitable. The sect leader often secludes himself for cultivation, with the Grand Elder Candlestar overseeing the power, and the Grand Elder has been doing quite well. So what Yijian spoke in detail, while Guan listened attentively. After a long while, Longqing brought Yitsong back to Third Medicine Valley. From a distance, they saw Zhuo Yijian sitting under a tree, stupidly smiling at a teapot on the table, as if possessed. Longqing hesitated for a moment, but still walked towards Zhuo Yijian. Yitsong subconsciously looked around, searching for his ancestor. After taking revenge and reflecting on his ancestor's power, he felt shocked. He had thought heaven-supporting ancestor was the strongest, but heaven-supporting ancestor was powerless before his ancestor. This incident also awakened him. If he hadn't met his ancestor that day, he might have already died. He began to admire and aspire after his ancestor, a person so powerful yet not overbearing, fair, the kind of person he wanted to become. Seeing Longqing and his disciple approaching, Zhuo Yijian composed himself, resuming his inscrutable demeanor. Longqing approached him and bowed, asking, "Senior, where has my master gone? Has he left any instructions?" Zhuo Yijian stood up and said, "As for where he's gone off to, I can't investigate that. and he didn't leave any message. After hearing this, Long Qing frowned. Jian spoke with a meaningful tone. Sect leader, the next time you visit the heaven repairing platform, don't just focus on the heaven splitting axe. Actually, the most important thing on the heaven repairing platform isn't the legacy, nor the sword intent, but the 2 words of righteous Tao he left behind. What is the righteous Tao? Different people have different understandings, but I think what's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. The righteous Tao should lead the moral climate of the human world. Before the sound of his voice faded, Jian had already disappeared from spot. After listening, Long Qing fell into silence. Song, looking at Long Qing's back, his eyes full of shame. After being scolded and looking back at his master's actions, he suddenly felt that being a master was the hardest. Song began to examine his own heart. What kind of person was he really? Did he deserve the 2 words righteous Tao? Heaven-supporting ancestor taught him that if one does not think for oneself, heaven and earth will annihilate them. Immortal cultivation is about striving, but seeing the ancestor today, he suddenly felt that cultivators must still have some convictions and principles. In thousands of years, he had seen countless powerhouses, but in terms of demeanor, no one could compare to his ancestor. The ancestor had only said a few words, but now that he thought back, each word was filled with deep meaning. Under the old tree, Long Qing and Song, each harboring their own thoughts, were reflecting on their own actions and pasts. Guan returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless and resumed his uneventful lifestyle, not caring about how Long Qing would deal with Song. Even if the supreme sect were to be destroyed, he didn't want to bother. His intervention this time was because Song was considered his disciple, and his disciples could not be enemies with the supreme sect. Regardless, the supreme sect still held a place in Guan's heart. Guan sat in a rocking chair reading a book, while in the courtyard, the great cauldron was still refining Tao treasures. This time, it wasn't an Xian who was helping to guard, but Xianxia. An Xian needed to cultivate, and Guan didn't trouble her. Besides, Xianxia was quite interested in refining treasures. Xianxia occasionally glanced at Guan, with words lingering on her lips, but never spoken. She always felt Guan had changed somehow this time, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. After reading for a while, Guan's mind inexplicably drifted to the figure of the youth. Why was that youth trapped in the desperate celestial tomb? What made him so capable of moving his heart? No, it's time to initiate a lifespan reincarnation. As soon as Guan thought it, he did it. After all, he still had 100 billion years of lifespan, so one attempt wasn't extravagant. His mind stirred, and a series of prompts appeared before his eyes. You consume 10 million years of lifespan to initiate a reincarnation evolution. Beginning to connect with the Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation worlds, you have the following worlds to choose from. Choose 1. Celestial Spirit Great World. 2. Misty Immortal Court. 3. Taishur Great World. This time, it wasn't going to be the Celestial Spirit Great World, but rather the likelihood of reincarnating into the future was 8 or 9 out of 10. Guan was not interested in the future, as he had already encountered extremes before. His gaze landed on the Misty Immortal Court. His previous lifespan breakthrough had also shown this place, so at least that indicated that in the Misty Immortal Court, Taiching Golden Immortals existed. Being born in such a place would result in a higher potential. That's the one. Guan made his choice, and another series of prompts popped up, reflected in his vision. You choose to reincarnate into Misty Immortal Court. Considering the strength of the Tao rules of this world, you cannot temporarily activate the ability to seize lifespan, nor can you activate phase functions. Reincarnation evolution begins, no ability to seize lifespan. Seeing this prompt, Guan was not disappointed. He actually breathed a sigh of relief. That was for the best, lest the reincarnation body go out of control. However, previously, Luhan also started in this way, and eventually activated the power to seize lifespan. He hoped this lifetime would be more stable. While pondering, Guan kept his eyes on the prompts. The first year, you were born in the Jinlan Immortal Mansion of the Misty Immortal Court. You were born with the Immortal Emperor's eye, astounding the Immortal Mansion. You were named Eternal Life by the Pavilion Master. At the age of 2, the Jinlan Immortal Mansion suffered an attack from space demons. Your eyes were gouged out, and misfortune was cast upon you. The powers in the mansion deduced that you could not live past 20 years. Unwilling to accept this fate, guided by the Pavilion Master, your parents decided to take you to Ling Mountain. What a tough start. Couldn't live past 20? Guan immediately tensed up. From Misty Immortal Court to Ling Mountain, could Eternal Live's parents reach it within 20 years? He began to look forward to Eternal Live's ability to activate lifespan evolution, perhaps to break free from fate. Chapter 566. The Path of the Buddha Emperor, Bodhi Golden Body at 3 years old, your parents encountered an attack by the Star Demon race in the chaotic Immortal Star River. Your mother was sacrificed, and your severely injured father took you and escaped into a space-time vortex. At 4 years old, despite his injuries, your father continued to take you toward Ling Mountain, and on the path of the Great Tao, he was attacked by a great power cultivator and perished, his existence erased. You were taken by this great power cultivator to a little world, where he accepted you as his disciple and imparted the method of cultivating immortality to you. Is this misfortune? They died so quickly. Guan felt something was off. Why did every lifespan reincarnation start so tragically? Could it be that Heavenly Tao was targeting him? At 6 years old, you successfully achieved foundation establishment. Learned your master was named Profound Misfortune Ancestor, and despite being blind, you did not know your father was killed by the Profound Misfortune Ancestor. You were grateful for the Profound Misfortune Ancestor's life-saving grace and upbringing. At 12 years old, under the help of the Profound Misfortune Ancestor, you condensed your golden core. The Profound Misfortune Ancestor used his own mana to coalesce your eyes, and you regained your sight, escalating your gratitude toward your master to another level. At 16, the Profound Misfortune Ancestor summoned you, offering you 2 paths of cultivation. One was the Taoist Emperor path, chasing the Emperor's destiny to become a Taoist Emperor. The other was the path of eternal life, pursuing an eternal lifespan to live as long as Heavenly Tao itself. You were caught in hesitation. How would you choose? Such quick decision-making. Seeking to live as long as Heavenly Tao itself, Guan instinctively resisted. Having suffered so much, he had no fondness for Heavenly Tao and believed his cultivation level should not rely on Heavenly Tao. You chose the Taoist Emperor path, and the Profound Misfortune Ancestor showed a relieved smile, beginning to impart the Tao profound skill to you. Wuxia World. Sight at 18. You fell into demonic possession during your cultivation, causing the Profound Misfortune Ancestor to examine your body and his face to drastically change. You were forced to reveal your early experiences, prompting the Profound Misfortune Ancestor to decide to take you to Ling Mountain in place of your parents. At 19, the Profound Misfortune Ancestor took you to Ling Mountain. You entered the Great Lane Temple, met the Celestial Buddhas, and the Profound Misfortune Ancestor requested the Celestial Buddha to save you. The Celestial Buddha stated that eliminating your misfortune required years of Buddhist spell chanting, and you had to first join Ling Mountain. The Profound Misfortune Ancestor looked at you, giving you the choice. Would you choose to join Ling Mountain? Yes. Are you kidding? With only 2 years left to live, Guan couldn't care less. Surviving came first. Plus, the Profound Misfortune Ancestor clearly wasn't a good person. Ling Mountain at least bore no grudge toward eternal life. You chose to join Ling Mountain, and the Celestial Buddha personally accepted you as a disciple, preserving your eternal name, hoping that the hard luck you could truly achieve longevity. The Profound Misfortune Ancestor gave you a few words of advice, then left. You watched the back of the Profound Misfortune Ancestor, reluctant to part. At 20, the misfortune within you erupted. Luckily, with the aid of the Celestial Buddha, you temporarily suppressed the misfortune. Under the guidance of the Celestial Buddha, you came before the Bodhi's sacred tree, and the Celestial Buddha transmitted to you a Buddhist spell, instructing you to chant scriptures and cultivate under the Bodhi sacred tree. At 23, your cultivation level made a breakthrough, gaining your own understanding of the Buddhist Tao. The rest of the hints were all about cultivation. Seeing that the celestial Buddha had made no moves against eternal life, Guan began to feel fondness for Ling Mountain. Keep at it. Don't leave halfway to experience the world. Guan thought this way. For him, the opportunity from the reincarnation body was not the most important. He primarily relied on the experiences from the reincarnation body to enhance his understanding of the great Tao. The higher the realm, the better he could comprehend the great Tao. Bowing into Ling Mountain, Guan lacked not in cultivation resources. Focusing wholeheartedly on cultivation, he could surely reach a very high realm. The hints popped up very fast. At 300 years old, Guan successfully achieved nirvana. During this period, he faced several backlashes of misfortune, each time with the celestial Buddha intervening. He couldn't make choices staying under the Bodhi sacred tree the whole time. Guan could only watch. Reincarnation's time swiftly passed by. In a blink, Xianxia had already reached the age of 9,000. At the age of 9,000, you comprehended the Bodhi sacred tree, realized the Buddhist Tao, and nature's spiritual energy surged towards you, causing heavenly phenomena, attracting the celestial Buddha and other Buddhas to take notice. You successfully forged the Bodhi golden body, and your talent shocked Ling Mountain. To Guan, Ling Mountain must certainly hide a Tai Ching golden immortal. Such a formidable force, yet to be shocked by the Bodhi golden body, indicated it was no ordinary thing. At the age of 9,100, you attained enlightenment under the Bodhi sacred tree. The Black Profound Emperor suddenly attacked. Just as he was about to reach you, the celestial Buddha appeared and annihilated him. You inquired about the origins of the Black Profound Emperor, and after deliberation, the celestial Buddha said it was unpredictable, then left. You always felt there was some connection between the Black Profound Emperor and yourself, and you began to comprehend the way of cause and effect. At the age of 9,234, you entered the wandering immortal realm, and after a breakthrough, you felt your connection with the immortal Emperor's eye. You could trace the immortal Emperor's eye, recalling your early experiences. If not for the immortal Emperor's eye being taken and cursed with misfortune, your parents would not have died. You found the celestial Buddha, proposed your idea of seeking revenge, but the celestial Buddha forbade it, telling you to reach the Tao fruit realm before leaving Ling Mountain. Seeing the celestial Buddha block Xianxia, Guan breathed a sigh of relief. A mere wandering immortal daring to seek revenge? Still ahead were various prompts about cultivation. Xianxia, sitting in front of the great cauldron, saw that Guan was not reading, but daydreaming, and could not help asking, "Guan, did you just have a breakthrough?" Guan glanced at her and asked, "Do you think my current realm is something I can easily break through? I just gained new insights into the great Tao." He also would keep secrets from those around him. It was a benign lie. The path of cultivating immortality was filled with bizarre methods, and even those close could unintentionally leak his information. Xianxia asked, "Just now, when I was focused on the scene inside the cauldron, I saw a golden Buddha enduring the flames tempering. What do you think this signifies? A golden Buddha?" Guan grew curious. Just as his reincarnation body had forged the Bodhi golden body, Xianxia saw a golden Buddha. Clearly there was some connection. Continue to feel it, and when you can't see it anymore, discuss it with me in detail, Guan proposed thoughtfully. Xianxia nodded and then returned her gaze to the great cauldron. Guan continued to pay attention to the reincarnation prompts. At the age of 57,046, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a divine thought true immortal. At the age of 57,389, you mastered the great celestial thunder spell. The celestial Buddha was deeply pleased and bestowed upon you the precious red dust Buddha beads of Ling Mountain. At the age of 68,507, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a free immortal. You awakened the divine skills of the immortal Emperor's eye and eagerly wished to reclaim the immortal Emperor's eye. At the age of 89,002, you succeeded in crossing the tribulation and became a Taoist Xianxia immortal. You began to solidify your cultivation level. At the age of 90,000, the celestial Buddha agreed for you to leave Ling Mountain. And before saying goodbye, he entrusted you with a task to take a disciple from the misty immortal court, saying they would certainly agree. You left Ling Mountain with doubts. At the age of 90,134, you encountered a group of cultivators ascending to yellow heaven. They were entangled by evil spirits. You helped them, and knowing you were heading in the same direction, the group of cultivators decided to travel with you. Seeing others follow, Guan knew trouble was coming. Afterward, he frequently encountered problems, but Guan never faced a choice. Perhaps these troubles posed no threat to Xianxia. At the age of 90,152, you ventured into a cosmic domain, and suddenly, great doubt, true fire emerged from all directions, submerging you. You couldn't escape the universe. Only able to resist with your mana, the great doubt, true fire grew stronger, continuously engulfing people. You protected the living with the red dust Buddha beads, while you yourself endured using the Bodhi golden body. At the age of 90,153, your red dust Buddha beads were refined. The protected cultivators all were refined, leaving only you relying on the Bodhi golden body to desperately endure. Suddenly, a figure came from the deep darkness, self-proclaimed as the profound demon emperor. You sensed the presence of the immortal emperor's eye on him. Knowing he was the one who took your eye, and thinking of your parents' tragic death, you attacked in rage. Due to the huge gap in cultivation level, you were no match for the profound demon emperor. Just as he was about to annihilate you, a golden palm shattered the universe and repelled the profound demon emperor. You turned back and recognized it as your teacher, the celestial Buddha's hand. No matter how you called to the celestial Buddha, he did not respond to you, and you could only leave this shattered universe. Chapter 567. Stealing Heaven Immortal Sect. Emperor of Eternal Life, seeing the celestial Buddha take action, Guan suddenly thought of Xianxia's master, the ancestor of 10,000 swords. Even for a life filled with hardships, there are always people who can light it up, bringing hope and warmth. The prompt continued. After his defeat by the profound demon emperor, the Emperor of Eternal Life temporarily gave up on retrieving the immortal emperor's eye. He began to head towards the misty immortal court to fulfill the task assigned by the celestial Buddha. At the age of 91,181, you returned to the misty immortal court. You went back to the Jinlan immortal mansion, met with the pavilion master who was deeply saddened by your parents' death, began to console you, and you mentioned the task given by the celestial Buddha. The pavilion master didn't refuse, but enthusiastically took you to the misty immortal palace. Along the way, you learned about the relationship between Ling Mountain and the misty immortal court. The current lord of the misty immortal court is a close friend of the celestial Buddha, who had once sent disciples to train in the misty immortal court, and now it was time to take disciples from the misty immortal court to train at Ling Mountain. You met the misty Tao emperor, feeling that this person was as profound and mysterious as the celestial Buddha. After some consideration, you took Fairy Xianxia, a prodigy of the misty immortal court, as your disciple. You then left with Xianxia towards Ling Mountain. At the age of 91,182, you and Xianxia arrived at the path of the great Tao. You found a spirit lake and decided to seek enlightenment there. Seeing the Emperor of Eternal Life taking Xianxia with him, Guan had a bad premonition. He always felt that Xianxia would die and that it would profoundly affect the Emperor of Eternal Life. Fortunately, things did not develop as he had anticipated. Decades later, both of them successfully returned to Ling Mountain, and the entire process did not give Guan a chance to choose. However, the same year they joined Ling Mountain, Xianxia expressed her love to the Emperor of Eternal Life. Unlike the Emperor becoming a disciple of Ling Mountain, Xianxia was just there to cultivate, and once she left, she would revert to being a disciple of the misty immortal court, so the rules of Ling Mountain could not restrict her. This time, Guan was faced with a choice. Upon meticulously recalling past experiences and ascertaining that the Emperor of Eternal Life had not developed feelings for the Misty Dao Emperor, he rejected Yaxuan's love. Wuxia world. Sight. You rejected Yaxuan's affection. She was neither angry nor sad, but instead chuckled, claiming that she would eventually shatter your Buddhist heart. After Yaoxian left, you turned back to the Bodhi sacred tree and asked the tree about your inner feelings. The years of cultivation continued. Even without the ability to snatch lifespan, the cultivation speed of the Emperor of Eternal Life was rapid. Although there were no choices to make nor severe trials to face next, Guan still watched with great interest. At 300,000 years old, he became the profound Yuan free immortal. At 1,000,000 years old, he became the heaven-encompassing free immortal. Without facing reincarnation tribulations, purely by cultivating beneath the Bodhi sacred tree, with frequent visits and praises for his exceptional talent from the Buddhas. At 1,004,236 years old, Fairy Yaoxian came to visit you. She said she was planning to venture onto the Taoist Emperor's path to achieve the title of Taoist Emperor. Knowing you're also pursuing this path, you chose to go with her. At 1,004,250 years old, you and Fairy Yaoxian arrived at the path of the Great Tao. Fairy Yaoxian took out a magical treasure bestowed by the Misty Immortal Court to pursue the celestial Tao destiny. As you sought and debated the Tao, you discovered that Yaxuan's cultivation was not weaker than yours, which surprised you. At 1,004,367 years old, you and Fairy Yaoxian encountered an attack from a Tao seeker from the Taisher Great World. After a great battle, you noticed a new type of destiny gathering on you, causing a deeper understanding of the Taoist Emperor to emerge. At 1,004,405 years old, Fairy Yaoxian had successfully defeated 10,000 Tao seekers pursuing the title of Taoist Emperor, achieving it ahead of you. At 1,004,423 years old, having defeated 10,000 Tao seekers pursuing the Taoist Emperor title yourself, the celestial Tao destiny gathered around you, and you achieved the title of Supreme Great Taoist Emperor, soaring in your cultivation. At 1,004,576 years old, you and Fairy Yaoxian unexpectedly met your mentor, the ancestral master Xianxia. You were delighted. However, during your reunion, the ancestral master Xianxia suddenly attacked you. With the help of Yaoxian, the two of you united were still no match for him. He captured Fairy Yaoxian, forcing you to dissolve your Bodhi golden body, threatening to obliterate Yaxuan's divine soul. Whether you choose to dissolve your Bodhi golden body. The prompt finally arrived. Master Xianxia indeed harbored ill intentions. After all, this man had killed the Emperor of Eternal Life's father and sent the Emperor to Ling Mountain, likely hoping to use Ling Mountain's power to free the Emperor from his misfortune. After so many years of acquaintance with Fairy Yaoxian and venturing the path of the Great Tao together, even without the presence of love, Fairy Yaxuan's place in the Emperor of Eternal Life's heart was undoubtedly significant. As Guan hesitated, he suddenly noticed Shenzhen's condition seemed a bit unusual. Shenzhen was still sitting in front of the great cauldron, but was lost in a trance, her eyes empty, as if she were having a terrible nightmare. Guan could hear her heart's voice. Guan's expression turned peculiar, feeling this was absurd. How could this be? He found Shenzhen's heart's voice was very suitable for the predicament Fairy Yaoxian was in. Could Guan have a reincarnation connection with Fairy Yaoxian? Guan thought for a moment and decided to take a gamble. He bet that the celestial Buddha would take action. Compared to the profound demon emperor, the celestial Buddha was his true master. You choose to release your Bodhi golden body yourself. Watching you dissolve your Bodhi golden body, Fairy Yaoxian was distraught. She broke through the suppression of the profound demon emperor, severely injuring him. Destiny surged insanely towards Fairy Yaoxian on the path of the Great Tao. Several powerful figures rushed to the scene. Seeing the situation turn unfavorable, the profound demon emperor tried to flee, but was annihilated by Fairy Yaoxian using great divine power. Turning to ashes, man, Fairy Yaoxian is that fierce? Because you dissolved your Bodhi golden body, your Tao practice was unstable, and your divine soul was disordered. Before you lost consciousness, you saw Fairy Yaoxian flying towards you. At the age of 1,732,121, you finally woke up. You found yourself in a dim world with a bonfire beside you. Shockingly, you saw the figure of the profound Demon Emperor. Instinctively wanting to attack the profound Demon Emperor, you then discovered you had no Tao practice. The profound Demon Emperor did not kill you, but instead explained why he took your Immortal Emperor's eye. It turns out the Immortal Emperor's eye is a supreme divine skill from the primordial Emperor domain. Even if its possessor perishes, the Immortal Emperor's eye can reincarnate through reincarnation rules. Your Immortal Emperor's eye's predecessor had offended the Celestial Court. Once the Immortal Emperor's eye matures, the Celestial Court would notice, so the profound Demon Emperor took your Immortal Emperor's eye to protect you. The misfortune on you was not his doing, but a remnant curse from your Immortal Emperor's eye's predecessor, a curse that even reincarnation couldn't dissipate. After knowing the truth, you fell into self-doubt, believing that your parents died because of you. You also found out that the profound Demon Emperor comes from the primordial Emperor domain. Seeing the mark of the Immortal Emperor's eye on you, he coveted it. The profound Demon Emperor hopes you would take up the legacy of your Immortal Emperor's eye's predecessor, Stealing Heaven Emperor, reunite the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect, and rebel against the reign of the Celestial Court. You hesitated whether to become the hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. How did it circle back to the Celestial Court again? What role does the Celestial Court exactly play in the vast world of the Great Tao? Guan immediately made a choice to deflect the sharp edge. You refused to become the hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. The profound Demon Emperor wasn't mad, but returned the Immortal Emperor's eye to you and informed you that after saving you, Fairy Yaoxian was counteracted by the Tao rules, fell into the reincarnation abyss, condemned to never transcend again. You couldn't find her again. You didn't believe it, and you secretly swore to find Fairy Yaoxian. At the age of 101,006,351, you fully integrated the Immortal Emperor's eye, using its tyrannical divine skills to restore your Bodhi golden body and all Tao practice. Your cultivation level even increased a bit. You began venturing into the 3,000 great worlds, searching for Fairy Yaoxian. The profound Demon Emperor chose to follow you. No matter how much you refused, you couldn't send him away. Thereafter, eternal life began adventuring, and new locations continued to unlock in the prompts. During the adventures, conflicts inevitably arose, and Guan frequently faced decisions closely related to life and death. If he encountered someone wanting to kill him, even if the opponent was defeated and begged for mercy, Guan showed no mercy. If he encountered creatures in peril and could save them, he let eternal life intervene to rescue. In this process, Guan could feel that eternal life's personality was shaping. This guy inherently had a very assertive nature. Later on, eternal life began to compel the profound Demon Emperor to do tasks for him. As the number of enemies he killed grew, Eternal Life's reputation spread far and wide. Eventually, someone discovered his Immortal Emperor's eye came from the Stealing Heaven Emperor, which suddenly made his reputation sinister. Ling Mountain even sent people to capture him, demanding he relinquish his cultivation level and give up the Immortal Emperor's eye. Eternal Life had a resolution in mind. He needed the power of the Immortal Emperor's to find Fairy Yaoxian and didn't give Guan a chance to choose, directly rejecting the demands of the Buddhist cultivators from Ling Mountain. A fight broke out, putting Eternal Life at odds with Ling Mountain. This path was inevitable after all. Guan looked at the prompt, sighing internally. At the same time, he was curious about the evil deeds Stealing Heaven Emperor had committed that made Ling Mountain directly wary of eternal life. It seems, with Stealing Heaven Emperor being annihilated by the Celestial Court, it might not be a misdeed by the Celestial Court. Possibly the Celestial Court was eradicating evil. Later on, More people troubled eternal life, some out of hatred, others wishing to eliminate the power of the stealing heaven emperor to obtain the celestial Tao destiny. Ling Mountain did not relent, continually sending Buddhas after him, which also caused eternal life and the profound demon emperor to be severely injured. In the relentless battles, eternal life declared himself emperor, known as the Emperor of Eternal Life. Many cultivators, hearing his title, fled immediately, not daring to associate with him. Guan started to worry. With things escalating, the celestial court would be alerted sooner or later, and even if eternal life was powerful, he feared he might die by the hands of the celestial court. At the age of 136,892, Yu and the profound demon emperor entered the Tai's great world. Yu interfered with the reincarnation rules, encountering resistance from the Tai's great world. After a fierce battle, Yu captured the world's realm master of the Tai's great world and stepped into reincarnation, bringing chaos of yin and yang to the Tai's great world. Tai's great world. Guan remembered this realm. The Buddha, immortal, who was the divine exotic realm master, was sent to this great world, which now was boundless, far surpassing the celestial spirit great world. It was unknown whether any legend of eternal life remained in the current Tai's great world. Chapter 568. The True Self of Karma, the Mighty Celestial Buddha. At 136,9102 years old, you stepped out of reincarnation and returned to the Tai's great world, where you were immediately besieged. Using your overwhelming cultivation level, you fought your way out and released all the captured strong figures from Tai's. At 136,93, 20 years old, you descended upon the Great Hong Great World. You pondered the path of reincarnation of this great world, startling the entire great world. A transcendent being who surpassed the heaven-encompassing free immortal came forth, gravely wounding you. In a critical moment, you used the immortal emperor's eye to escape. Guan stared at the prompts before him, not surprised to see the emperor of eternal life injured. Just the heaven-encompassing free immortal being so presumptuous and still surviving already proved the strength of the immortal emperor's eye. From the succession of battle achievements, it was evident that the divine skills contained within the immortal emperor's eye were not only for combat, but also for aiding the emperor of eternal life in his escapes, which piqued his curiosity about the immortal emperor's eye. He grew increasingly expectant of the memories inherited from the emperor of eternal life. Experiencing the life of the emperor of eternal life firsthand would undoubtedly be more marvelous than words could tell. Constantly battling, constantly getting injured, yet always escaping from the jaws of death, Guan retained his original stance. He would take his revenge upon enemies and avoid making unwarranted enemies. If he encountered injustices, he would have the Emperor of Eternal Life act righteously. Guan believed in the blessings that came from doing many good deeds. By the time the Emperor of Eternal Life was 2 million years old, he had successfully entered the innate golden immortal realm, his strength leaping forward. During his breakthrough, he was attacked yet again, but he managed to succeed in crossing the tribulation amid the fierce battle, an event that resonated through the ages. From then on, the Emperor of Eternal Life was truly grown. He and the profound Demon Emperor often parted ways, but always found each other again, which made Guan think that the profound Demon Emperor was not simple either. Without the immortal Emperor's eye, to follow the Emperor of Eternal Life in his domineering ways and still survive. Perhaps the profound Demon Emperor was once a peerless genius of his world. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. The great 1,000 worlds the Emperor of Eternal Life visited were ever increasing. He traveled through reincarnation and probed destiny, encountering few opponents after entering the innate golden immortal realm. The Emperor of Eternal Life would refresh the peak of lifespan reincarnation, and Guan looked forward to seeing how far he could go. The flow of reincarnation prompts swiftly propelled the time of reincarnation forward. At the age of tens of millions, the Emperor of Eternal Life achieved the status of heaven-balancing golden immortal and chose to become the sect hierarch of the stealing heaven immortal sect under the instigation of the profound demon emperor to develop the sect's power and to help him search for the whereabouts of Fairy Yaoxian. At the age of over 50 million, the Emperor of Eternal Life condensed the destiny of the great Tao and became a Tai Ching golden immortal. In the obscurity of it all, every Taoist emperor could see his silhouette after the breakthrough. From then on, the Emperor of Eternal Life left an indelible mark on the path of becoming a Taoist emperor. But he was still not happy. He couldn't find Fairy Yaoxian. As time went on, his resolve did not waver, but became even more obsessive. Once, the profound demon emperor advised him to let go of his obsession and focus on developing the stealing heaven immortal sect. This provoked his fury, and he almost annihilated the profound demon emperor. Guan occasionally paid attention to Xianxia, whose mind seemed to be still in a dream and more like in a nightmare. This made Guan think of the predicament Fairy Yaoxian might have encountered. He became more certain that Xianxia had some connection with Fairy Yaoxian. What that connection was, perhaps he would have an answer when this cycle of lifespan reincarnation ended. At the same time, he marveled at the power of lifespan reincarnation. It began to affect reality even before it ended. The prompts continued, and in the following years, the stealing heaven immortal sect grew stronger. More and more individuals with great power came to serve the Emperor of Eternal Life, prompting Guan to think of the grandeur of Longzhan when he founded the Battle Court. Compared to the Battle Court, the stealing heaven immortal sect clearly had a deeper foundation, though of course, it was unknown if the stealing heaven immortal sect could compare with the Battle Court in Guan's own era. Millions of years later, the Emperor of Eternal Life grew tired of the stealing heaven immortal sect and decided to search for Fairy Yaoxian on his own. Without the profound demon emperor accompanying him, the Emperor of Eternal Life rarely encountered battles, but in his interactions with others, there were always women who fell for him. Fortunately, Guan rejected them all on his behalf. At the age of 127, 74632, while you were contemplating the Tao in the boundless sea of Tao, you were attacked by the celestial punishment god. Despite the disparity in Tao practice, you still managed to repel him. At the age of 127, 74633, celestial Tao golden light descended. The celestial court sent celestial gods and celestial generals to attack, sealing the cosmic plane to prevent your escape. You were trapped in a fierce battle. Under the suppression of the heavenly Tao, even the immortal emperors, I couldn't help you escape. Just as the immortal gods were about to execute you, the celestial Buddha broke through the universe and forcefully rescued you, suffering severe injuries himself. At 127,746,634 years old, the celestial Buddha sent you to the river of cause and effect, instructing you never to step out again. You gaze at the departing silhouette of the celestial Buddha, remaining silent for a long time. At 127,746,656 years old, you encountered the great cause and effect stele within the river of cause and effect, and you began to comprehend the great cause and effect stele. Sure enough, it collided with the celestial court. Guan was surprised that the celestial Buddha could actually contend with the celestial court, even severely wounded and capable of rescuing the Emperor of Eternal Life, which sufficiently demonstrated the strength of the celestial Buddha. At the same time, the Emperor of Eternal Life also displayed terrifying strength, merely an innate golden immortal, yet able to rival the immortal gods. The celestial spirit gods, celestial extreme gods, and gods of destruction that Guan had previously encountered all possessed the cultivation level of a heaven-balancing golden immortal, and even if that celestial punishment god had just ascended, at the very least, he was of the cultivation level of an innate golden immortal. Keep in mind that the Emperor of Eternal Life did not rely on the ability to evolve through lifespan. His greatest reliance was the immortal Emperor's eye. At 127, 747, 58, and 97 years old, through the great cause and effect stele, you discovered that you were not your true self, which plunged you into confusion. At 127,747,004 years old, you accepted the cause and effect of the self, feeling that such truth might actually be a good thing. You could not save Fairy Xianxia, but a stronger version of you might be able to. You took out a strand of hair that Fairy Xianxia had left behind and began to pursue its cause and effect. At 127,901,546 years old, you located the positions of other identities within the cause and effect. Unable to find the true self, you took Fairy Xianxia's hair and merged it into the great cause and effect steel, choosing to fall within the great cause and effect steel. You have perished, and your path has dissipated. Reincarnation has ended. The end? Guan had not expected that the life of the Emperor of Eternal Life would end in such a manner. He did not leave the Taoist field of the beginningless, but instead prepared to receive the memories of the heritage right there. The celestial spirit, great world's capacity to endure was far greater than before, and besides, his Taoist field of the beginningless itself was essentially a lifespan barrier, though it would catch the attention of people within the field. Guan closed his eyes, and vast memories surged into his mind, giving him a sense of traveling through time. He experienced life from the Emperor of Eternal Lives' first opening of the eyes. The Jinlan Immortal Mansion was bigger than he had imagined, completely its own independent world, and there were tens of thousands of such immortal mansions within the misty Immortal Court, with rankings among them. The Jinlan Immortal Mansion was considered a lower-ranked immortal mansion, but the birth of the immortal emperor's eye attracted many great powers. Through others' conversations, Guan learned that the immortal emperor's eye was not unique, hence the misty Immortal Court did not associate the Emperor of Eternal Life with the Stealing Heaven Emperor. Soon, misfortune began. The profound demon emperor attacked, seizing the opportunity to take the immortal emperor's eye during the escort to Ling Mountain. On the way, the parents of the Emperor of Eternal Life died one after another. These experiences did not stir Guan, as he had already gone through several lifespan reincarnations. However, through the Emperor of Eternal Lives' perspective, Guan saw the magnificent expanse of the great Tao world, which broadened his vision. When he arrived at Ling Mountain, he too was shocked by it. The height of Ling Mountain was unimaginable, surrounded by many great heaven and earths, like stars, all of which seemed so minuscule in front of Ling Mountain. Even the nebulae in the universe were far less vast than Ling Mountain. The Buddha within Ling Mountain each had an extraordinary aura. Some even had golden bodies surpassing tens of thousands of feet in height. Guan also saw the celestial Buddha, and understanding the image of the celestial Buddha, he realized why he was able to rescue the Emperor of Eternal Life from the hands of the celestial court. Just one glance, and Guan could ascertain that the celestial Buddha exceeded the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm. After becoming a disciple, when the celestial Buddha was alone with the Emperor of Eternal Life, the imposing aura that overlooked all living beings was gone. He was like a kind monk, teaching the Emperor of Eternal Life how to cultivate and guiding him through confusions. In front of the Bodhi's sacred tree, the Emperor of Eternal Life would forget his sufferings. The celestial Buddha let Guan see what a true Buddha should be like, possessing both the mighty power to shoulder the weight of all living beings and the compassion to care for the weakest. Chapter 569, Battle Court Strikes. Invincible, when Guan was immersed in his reincarnation memories, spiritual energy from the Taoist field of the beginningless surged towards him, startling the disciples within. Xianxia was the first to be awakened. She turned her head to look at Guan, who was meditating with his eyes closed, her eyes brimming with curiosity. An Xian arrived first, followed by LV Xian, Chun Chuan, Celestial Demon Child, and others. Gradually, everyone gathered in the courtyard within the span of 5 breaths. When they realized the extraordinary phenomenon of the spiritual energy in the Taoist field originated from Guan, they all breathed a sigh of relief. What is Master doing? It looks like he's seeking enlightenment. The realm of our master is so high, yet he can still experience sudden enlightenment. Perhaps his talent is greater than we thought. Nonsense. It's clear that our master is a genius. How else could he have reached his current realm? Stop guessing and sit down quickly. Let's profoundly sense the master's Tao. Everyone discussed in hushed tones, afraid of disturbing Guan. After being reminded by the blood prison great saint, everyone sat down to earnestly contemplate. The Taoist field of the beginningless fell into silence. The mountains and forests were beautiful. The sunlight was gentle. Everything seemed so perfect. An hour later, Wuxia world. Sight Guan opened his eyes and saw that everyone was meditating within the courtyard. His expression didn't change. He just turned his gaze toward Xianxia. Such a heavy obsession, Guan lamented inwardly. He had figured out the relationship between Xianxia and Fairy Yaoxian. In fact, there was no actual relationship between the two. It was just that the Emperor of Eternal Life transferred Fairy Yaoxian's karma onto Xianxia, hoping that the original self, namely Guan, could find Fairy Yaoxian through Xianxia and rescue her. Fairy Yaoxian is a Taoist emperor with extraordinary talent. Even part of karma could change Xianxia's destiny. Xianxia was not initially chosen by the Emperor of Eternal Life, but was granted karma by him after meeting Guan. This was the act of the Emperor of Eternal Life after merging with the Great Cause and Effect Steel. He couldn't deduce where his original self was, so he could only utilize the power of the Great Cause and Effect Steel. He chose to self-destruct, also to make better use of the power of the Great Cause and Effect Steel. In the last moment before his will dispersed, he finally locked onto the celestial spirit great world of the future. He chose Xianxia because, among the people Guan cared about, only Xianxia had no one in her heart but Guan. The Emperor of Eternal Life believed that only such a relationship could compel Guan to go and save Fairy Yaoxian. Not only that, the Emperor of Eternal Life also left a mark within the Great Cause and Effect Steel as a way of repaying the original self in advance. Through this matter, Guan suddenly realized that Xianxia's affection for him was indeed different. Although she said nothing, she had abandoned everything to follow him. When Xianxia chose him, she did not know his true cultivation level. She simply did so because their aspirations and intentions concurred. Guan looked at Xianxia, and he too felt relieved. Xianxia was not a replacement for anyone. She was still her own person, which was quite all right. As for the karma of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan would shoulder it. After all, he was the Emperor of Eternal Life. They were essentially the same person. One day, he would help the Emperor of Eternal Life find Fairy Yaoxian. With a thought, Guan's pupils transformed into a purplish gold hue, with flames faintly surging within. The Immortal Emperor's Eye. After inheriting the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan suddenly mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It's worth noting that his Immortal Emperor's Eye had no association with the Stealing Heaven Emperor, which was another of the Emperor of Eternal Life's methods. The Emperor of Eternal Life had obliterated Stealing Heaven Emperor's Immortal Emperor's Eye within the Great Cause and Effect Steel. The reason Guan could condense his own Immortal Emperor's Eye was because it was a skill that was cultivated akin to a variation of divine powers. Only it affected the bloodline and soul. The Emperor of Eternal Life had mastered the Immortal Emperor's Eye for hundreds of millions of years and had grasped its essence. This allowed Guan to directly cultivate the Immortal Emperor's Eye. It was a new Immortal Emperor's Eye without any karma. The Immortal Emperor's Eye was a great Tao creation, extremely difficult to cultivate, and different people could possess different mysteries. Now, Guan's mana was converging towards the Immortal Emperor's Eye, which would give rise to Immortal Emperor's Eye divine power unique to him. Guan spread out his Tao intent, immersing the others in the process of enlightenment to prevent them from seeing the Immortal Emperor's Eye. The night sky was clear with the moon shining brightly and few stars. Inside the pagoda of Third Medicine Valley, which once belonged to Guan, Long Qing and Yi Tsong sat opposite each other. They had been talking for several days, with Yi Tsong speaking and Long Qing listening. After Yi Tsong had recounted his experiences of 9,000 years, he inhaled deeply and said, "Master, I've truly recognized my mistakes. Am willing to accept punishment. Please discipline me according to the sect's rules." He had already killed Shui Xianlin, avenging his sister, and his vengeance was thus settled, and next, he needed to take responsibility for his own mistakes. When he forced his way into Supreme Sect, although he did not create a massacre, he caused many people to get hurt, bringing immeasurable losses to Supreme Sect. Long Qing looked at Yi Tsong and asked, "If your teacher asked you to take on the responsibility of the Supreme Sect, would you be willing?" "What responsibility?" Yi Tsong asked in confusion. Long Qing answered, "The responsibility of the sect leader." At these words, Yi Tsong suddenly stood up, astonished. "How can I be the sect leader? Besides, isn't Brother Long Tongue the best candidate?" As he spoke these words, the image of Guan surfaced in his mind again. He wasn't clear on what he was thinking, only feeling that the matter was ridiculous. Long Qing's gaze remained calm as he said, "You have finished recounting your past experiences. Now it is time for your teacher to talk about his own past." Yi Tsong's brows furrowed, and he could only suppress the confusion in his heart before sitting down. Long Qing began to talk about the past of the Long clan and their deep-seated grievances and enmities with the battle court. Hearing that his master was from outer heaven, Yi Tsong was shocked but did not interrupt with questions and listened attentively. As time went on, Yi Tsong's expression continuously changed, and by the end, his mood had turned somber. He had not at all expected that his master carried so many burdens. Compared to his master, his own suffering was insignificant. Heaven-supporting ancestor flew out from within Yi Tsong, looking at Long Qing with a complex expression. Seeing heaven-supporting ancestor appear, Long Qing paid no heed and continued speaking about the burden of karma he carried. After a long while, Long Qing finished recounting the past and looked at Yi Tsong, saying, "I am destined to die, but I do not wish my progeny to walk the same old path. I hope they stay away from Supreme Sect, away from the karma of the Long clan. My views diverge from those of the Grand Elder, so I wish to support you in becoming the next sect leader. Your talent is strong enough to become the strongest in Supreme Sect's future. But, Kanger, your temperament still needs tempering. It's fine to be sharp, but in all things, leave some leeway and do not be too extreme." His tone was still calm, revealing no emotion. Yi Tsong couldn't help but say, "Master, why must you bear such heavy karma? The battle court hasn't come yet, have they? Perhaps the battle court has already been annihilated, or maybe they can't even find the celestial spirit great world. It's impossible. The strength of the battle court is beyond your imagination. I had also heard of the Long clan before. I didn't expect that the Long clan still had surviving bloodlines. The battle court will certainly not let the Long clan off the hook." Heaven-supporting ancestor spoke with a hint of unease in his voice. Yi Tsong turned to heaven-supporting ancestor and asked with a frown, "Is the battle court truly unbeatable?" Heaven-supporting ancestor sighed. "Truly unbeatable." Yi Tsong, unconvinced, asked, "What if my ancestor made a move? Could the battle court withstand it?" Heaven-supporting ancestor was caught off guard by the thought of Guan, which made him shudder, but he still said, "That is the karma of the Long clan. Your ancestor doesn't need to get involved. Besides, the might of the battle court is great, and you've never been to the great world beyond. You have no idea how terrifying the battle court truly is." Long Qing joined in. "That's right, my karma won't involve my teacher. He took me in and did what he could already. Back then, he did not wish for me to bear such karma. It was my own insistence." He looked at Yi Tsong and continued, "Kanger, your teacher was also impulsive like you in his youth. I'm telling you about these things, not because I want you to do anything for me, but to tell you that each person has their fate, and the only things one can control are one's own matters." Yi Tsong fell into silence after hearing this. Heaven-supporting ancestor observed the master-disciple duo, his mood turning heavy as well. He knew of the battle courts, might even more clearly than Long Qing. With your current cultivation level, even if you're prepared to sacrifice yourself, you probably cannot withstand the battle court. If you die, the battle court won't spare your progeny either. Although I don't know what you're relying on, I think it's impossible for you to completely end the karma of the Long clan. Heaven-supporting ancestor looked at Long Qing and warned. He paused, then continued, "Moreover, I can feel some powerful force approaching the celestial spirit great world. I was surprised before, but now I think that powerful force must be the battle court." Long Qing showed a smile and said, "I have my own methods. In fact, I have felt it too, which is why I chose to talk about this matter and do not shy away from your presence." Heaven-supporting ancestor stared at Long Qing and spoke earnestly. "If the battle court intends to slaughter the celestial spirit great world, I will take Yi Song and leave. Although you and your disciple have a deep bond, I also care for him." Long Qing did not respond and simply picked up the cup of tea on the table that had long since turned cold. Yi Song took a deep breath, slowly stood up, and his eyes became resolute. He looked at Long Qing and said, "Master, I will remember the principles you've shared, but your karma, I want to help you. It's just a battle court, right? I don't believe they are truly invincible." Heaven-supporting ancestor glared and said, "You little brat, what power do you have to boast? Without my power, how are you any different from an ant?" Yi Song turned his head to look at him and said, "If I can't fight them, I will protect the Long clan. Master, you can rest assured I won't seek death. I remember what I promised you, and once I fulfill what I promised, I might have the strength to confront the battle court." Heaven-supporting ancestor opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to say that even if you complete that task, it would still be far from enough to shake the battle court. Chapter 570. Heavenly Dao's Creation. 10,000 years of devotion after inheriting the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, Gu An's life returned to its usual tranquility. His disciples at the dojo were oblivious to the fact that he had practiced the Immortal Emperor's eye as he continued refining Dao treasures. Aside from crafting a Dao treasure for the deep-sea dragon carp, he was also preparing one for Xianxia, Long Qing, Yang Jian, and Zhang Buku. Of course, these were just being prepared in advance. As for when he would give them away, it would depend on his mood. Refining treasures, picking herbs, and occasionally giving guidance to disciples. The wheels of time accelerated there, turning amidst such a rhythm of life. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the primordial era of the celestial spirit great world, creation was constant. Not only were beings of exceptional talent born, but superior heavenly materials and earthly treasures, as well as heaven and earth treasures, would also be nurtured. Treasures were not only created through refining. Heaven and earth themselves could give birth to innate treasures. Innate treasures could more easily trigger the rules of heaven and earth, and each contained immense power. Those who obtained an innate treasure would find it easier to become formidable figures who could stir the winds and clouds of the world. Against such a backdrop, discourse about the heavenly Tao began to spread again in the human world. Those who acquired supreme treasures were branded as favored by the heavenly Tao, causing all beings to fear and yearn for the heavenly Tao even more. One day, after Guan had just finished refining a Tao treasure, he stood up having decided on the foundation for the new treasure's refinement, without even bidding farewell to Shenzhen. Shenzhen didn't mind too much, absorbed in the Tao treasure within the great cauldron. She sensed a kind of Tao aura she had never perceived before. How can he possess so many types of the power of the great Tao? Shenzhen muttered. In her view, mastering one type of the power of the great Tao was enough to tower over all beings. Yet Guan had displayed over a dozen, unfathomably deep. She simply exclaimed without giving it much further thought and concentrated on comprehending the Tao. In recent millennia, as she comprehended the Tao, the desire had taken root in her heart. It seemed she was searching for something, but even she wasn't clear on what it was. She instinctively felt this longing. Wuxia world. Sight, Wuxia world. Sight. This yearning drove her to pursue enlightenment with more diligence than in the first half of her life, no longer allowing herself to slack off. Elsewhere, Guan arrived at the edge of a cliff and looked down at the mountain path below. Mountains rose high on both sides of the path, blocking the sunlight. The cliff face was covered in grass and vines, creating a quiet, desolate atmosphere. At this moment, a scholar with a bookcase strapped to his back was making his way forward, leaning on a wooden staff. The mountain path was steep without stone steps, and weeds covered the sharp rocks, making his advance even slower. This scholar was the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. Under Gu's gaze, a white fox followed behind the celestial spirit god. The white fox had searched for 10,000 years and finally found the reincarnated celestial spirit god. 10,000 years ago, the eldest brother killed an evil person in the city to save the youngest of 5, leading to his being pursued by the authorities. Meanwhile, the 3 white foxes, as agreed, resurrected the youngest brother. However, having shed blood, they could no longer control their murderous impulses, and when anyone troubled them, they would find a way to eliminate them. Eventually, the Immortal Cultivation sect discovered them. With their low cultivation level, they couldn't resist capture by the cultivators. They were taken prisoner, and the youngest, due to his demonic power, was also taken by the sect. Decades later, the youngest seized the chance to rescue the 3 white foxes, only to find 2 had already died tragically. He could only flee with the surviving one, who, though alive, was at death's door. The surviving white fox, named Su Jin, was gravely injured, forcing the ensuing escape to depend on the youngest protection. The Immortal Cultivation sect began to chase them because she once transformed into a courtesan. The cultivators started to speculate maliciously about their relationship, spreading rumors far and wide, damaging their reputation and leading more cultivators to join the hunt. Under the oppression of both the secular world and the immortal cultivation realm, feelings developed between the youngest and Su Jin. When the youngest sent Su Jin to the demon race's territory for her safety, he died by the blade of a cultivator while covering her escape. Such tragedies were not unusual in this world. Su Jin was fortunate to become a disciple of a great power from the demon race, and even obtained the reincarnation technique. She searched for the youngest for 10,000 years until she finally found him in this life. Of course, Guan played a role in her finding him, as the celestial spirit god was covered by his karmic influence. Without his intention, she would never have found him. The celestial spirit god had been reincarnated hundreds of times, experiencing various lives. Each death caused his will to briefly awaken, allowing him to take in the experiences of reincarnation. Guan could sense the changes in the celestial spirit god's mindset, which is why he gave him the opportunity. In this life, the celestial spirit god was named by Sheng, hailing from a remote town. He was on his way to the imperial city of the dynasty to participate in the imperial examination. As he reached the highest point of the mountain path, the downhill path lay ahead. Stopping, he set down his bookcase and began to wipe off his sweat. He turned his head and looked back down the mountain path he came by, beholding the undulating expanse of forest that stretched out magnificently without end. A smile appeared on his face, and a feeling of exuberant pride welled up in his heart. Even if all my reading brings no rewards, having traveled thousands of miles, this life is still worth it, Bai Sheng said with heartfelt emotion, a proud and satisfied smile spreading across his handsome face. Suddenly, he caught sight of a little white fox in the grass below, and with a smile and a wave, he greeted it. "Little fox, we meet again. Can't you bear to part with me?" Upon hearing his words, Su Jin promptly emerged from the grass, hurried up the mountain, and affectionately rubbed against Bai Sheng's trouser leg. Bai Sheng was amused by her, then took out some of his rations and shared a piece with her. Guan stood atop the mountain, gazing down at the joyful scene of the reunion between the man and the fox. The stories of scholars and demons made Guan think of the ancient Wuxia literature, strange tales from a Chinese studio from his past life. In the celestial spirit great world, romances between humans and demons are not uncommon, but they're not as fraught with complications. Few humans betray a demon and live to tell the tale, given the disparity in strength. In this life, the end of Bai Sheng and Su Jin's story was destined to be a tragedy, but with Gu An's intervention, anything could change. Guan was ready to use Su Jin as a test for the celestial spirit god. If the celestial spirit god still lacked compassion, then it would continue to languish in reincarnation. When Guan was no longer fearful of the celestial court, that would mark the moment of its annihilation. With time on his hands, Guan decided to get involved. He turned and strode toward the forest. In an instant, his attire transformed dramatically into that of a traveling martial hero, dust-covered yet retaining the demeanor of a gallant figure of the martial world. He wore a broad-brimmed hat and had the Cyan Hong sword strapped to his waist. Su Jin was nibbling on the pastry, her eyes constantly on Bai Sheng. Staring at Bai Sheng, she felt somewhat dazed. Thousands of years had passed, and he had become completely different. In her memory, Xiao Wu never had such presence, always wearing a worried look on his face. But the secret technique she practiced told her this man's soul was indeed Xiao Wu's. In this life, I will definitely not let you suffer, Su Jin thought silently. Suddenly, she turned her head. Her movement caught Bai Sheng's attention, prompting him to look up as well. The nearby trees shook, and they saw a figure emerge from the woods. Seeing Gu An's attire, Bai Sheng grew nervous, fearing the other might be a bandit. He quickly stuffed Su Jin into his book box, and then turned to face Guan, feigning calm. Guan lifted his head, his youthful yet somewhat weathered face showing from beneath his broad-brimmed hat. Bai Sheng instantly relaxed, feeling that Guan seemed like a kind person. Guan just passing through. It's rare to meet someone here, so I thought I'd come say hello. Hope I didn't scare you? Guan said with an enthusiastic smile. Bai Sheng quickly raised his hand in greeting. Scare me? Not at all. My name is Bai Sheng, from Lu County, on my way to the Imperial City. Guan curiously asked, Are you going to take the official examination? That's right. Where might Brother Gu be headed? Coincidentally, I'm also going to the Imperial City. How about we travel together? I can protect you. In return, you can keep me company and talk about your studies. You scholars know much that I don't. I've practiced martial arts since I was young and never had much education. Actually, I've always envied the world of scholars, Guan said with a laugh, his easygoing manner increasing Bai Sheng's favorable impression of him. The two sat down to chat and found they got along splendidly. Suddenly, Su Jin jumped out of the book box, causing Guan to be taken aback. Bai Sheng quickly introduced her, explaining that he and the little fox were destined to meet. Foxes are very spiritual, and there have been plenty of stories about scholars and fox spirits throughout history. Brother Bai, you must be careful. She might be a demon, Guan teased. Su Jin couldn't help but glare at Guan, finding him too talkative. Bai Sheng's handsome face reddened as he hurriedly replied, How could that be? Even if she were a demon, there's no way such a story would happen between us. As soon as these words were spoken, Su Jin's gaze towards Guan was filled with annoyance, though Bai Sheng failed to notice the change in her eyes. Chapter 571. The First Calamity, Dao Court. Guan and Su Jin accompanied Bai Sheng on his way to the Imperial City, with laughter and joy along the way. Bai Sheng had never been so happy. During this period, Guan would use a clone to replace himself, while his real body went to pick medicinal herbs. Su Jin was a 10,000-year-old great demon, already in the Nirvana realm, but still had not seen through the switch between Gu An's true body and his clone. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. They had not yet reached the Imperial City, and with 2 years until the examination, Bai Sheng was not in a hurry. He had set out early, wanting to travel and expand his horizons. On this day, the rain drizzled incessantly. Bai Sheng and Gu came to a small pavilion in the mountains to rest, and Su Jin leaped out of the bookcase, perched on Bai Sheng's shoulder, and licked his face as if trying to help him wipe the rainwater away. Bai Sheng had grown accustomed to her affection and didn't pay it much mind. He was discussing the local customs and culture with Guan. Although it was his first visit, he had read about this place in books and was very excited. The rainy weather did not dampen his spirits. Guan held the wine gourd in his hand, drinking while listening to Bai Sheng talk about the past and present, discussing the masterpieces that had been born here and the stories that were worth singing and weeping over. When Bai Sheng had talked until his mouth was dry and his throat parched, Guan tossed him the wine gourd. Bai Sheng caught it and poured it directly into his mouth. I've heard that there are ghosts and apparitions around here, but I don't know if it's true or not. I've practiced martial arts for over 30 years, yet I've never seen a demon or ghost. Guan, with the Cyan Hong sword in hand, spoke eagerly. Su Jin couldn't help but roll her eyes at him, feeling that he was overestimating himself. She really wanted to speak, but she was afraid of scaring Bai Sheng. Wuxia world, Sight Bai Sheng said with a laugh. If there is, I would like to meet one too. You're as weak as a chicken. Aren't you scared of ghosts? One eventually dies. Rather than living a quiet life, never seeing ghosts or demons, I wouldn't regret or be afraid even if I died under the claws of a demon or ghost. Bai Sheng replied with an untroubled laugh, his eyes shining. Guan felt that Bai Sheng seemed frail, but in fact he was full of energy, interested in everything, and full of fighting spirit. This guy had a tenacity inherent in his bones, truly worthy of being the reincarnation of a celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god, despite different origins in each reincarnation, would retain some of the original personality traits. That was also why Bai Sheng could attract Su Jin's attention. Guan said with a smile, "You should practice martial arts, not just study." Bai Sheng stood up, holding the wine gourd and assumed a pose, executing a set of awkward fist technique, then said proudly, "Isn't it better to excel in both literature and martial arts? Why don't you teach me a set of swordsmanship? I think swords complement poetry." All right, let's start now. Really? Hearing Gu An's words, Bai Sheng was overjoyed and immediately dragged Gu into practice swordsmanship. After beginning sword training, Guan was not all smiles and laughter with Bai Sheng, occasionally correcting Bai Sheng's posture with the hilt of the sword, which angered Su Jin. Once Bai Sheng was able to accept her, she'd make Guan pay. As she thought this, she saw Guan applying more force, causing Bai Sheng to cry out in pain, which further annoyed her. "If you're afraid of pain, you can give up." "No problem, I can hold on." Guan deliberately asked this, and upon hearing Bai Sheng's reply, Su Jin could only bear with it. In the days that followed, every time they rested, Bai Sheng would pester Gu into practice swordsmanship. In Su Jin's view, this sword Dao was quite ordinary. Practicing it was a waste of time. She planned to teach Bai Sheng immortal cultivation later, since only by stepping onto the immortal path could he stay with her forever. Another half a year passed. Spring had just begun. Guan and Bai Sheng arrived at the gates of the imperial city, and seeing the majestic gates, Bai Sheng couldn't help but raise his arms and cheer. Su Jin, perched on his shoulder, squinted her fox-like eyes. She sensed a heavy demon chi. There were demons in the city. It seemed trouble was brewing. As expected of the imperial city under the sun of heaven's feet, majestic and imposing, the destination of the celestial mandate, "This is the most prosperous place under heaven," said Bai Sheng excitedly. Guan smiled and said, "There are not only one dynasty in this world. To speak of the celestial mandate like this is a bit presumptuous." Bai Sheng glanced at Guan and asked, "Have you been to other dynasties?" "No." "Then let's first believe that this is the greatest city." Bai Sheng lifted his bookcase and strode toward the imperial city. As he walked, he turned back to ask Gu and the purpose of his visit to the imperial city. Guan was evasive, which made Su Jin even more vigilant. The crowd in front of the city gate was vast. They blended into it and quickly vanished from sight. At the same time, on the other side of the human world, Leah stood atop a mountain, looking down at the valley below, where weeds sprawled wildly with the faint outline of ancient attic buildings visible. This was Profound Valley, his first residence when he joined the Supreme Sect years ago. Leah gazed at the valley, looking lost in thought. A figure approached from behind him. It was Long Qing. Elderly, should I have someone tidy this up? Long Qing asked, weariness apparent in his features. With the impending assault from the battle cord drawing near, his cultivation grew more arduous. He would not have left his practice had Leah not returned. Leah still wore his black garments, with stubble on his face and his hair casually tied, exuding the air of a wanderer from the martial world, not that of someone from immortal cultivation. No need, I'm just taking a glance. You don't need to accompany me especially. I will be leaving soon, Leah replied softly as he overlooked Profound Valley. In his eyes, the weeds in the valley disappeared, replaced by fields of medicinal herbs. He saw 3 young boys playing and frolicking. After hearing this, Long Qing nodded slightly and then turned to leave. He could tell that Leah was preoccupied, but he had no intention of prying. Could any worry be greater than his own life and death? As the millennia passed, Long Qing grew increasingly uneasy, always harboring the feeling of an impending calamity. After Long Qing departed, Leah remained in the same place, deep in thought. The divine, exotic, immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder and said, "Still looking, huh? The master isn't dead. He just left. I'm not worried about him. I just wanted to take one last look at this place before leaving. I might never return," Leah answered. Hearing this, the divine, exotic, immortal spirit cocked its head, asking in surprise, "Where exactly are you going? You still won't tell me? Ever since you practiced that miracle skill, I can't hear your inner thoughts. Living inside you, I feel like an outsider." Towards the end, its tone was of a complaint. "I'm heading to outer heaven. Where exactly, I'm not sure. I want to follow Guan's steps and also look for Zhongbu Ku. Didn't you say that the power of the divine exotic realm master still exists? Maybe Zhongbu Ku is still alive." With that, Leah turned and looked up at the celestial vault. He leaped up, transforming into a beam of sword light, piercing the sky. As he soared further from the ground, the blue of the celestial vault darkened to black. Stars emerged and quickly became resplendent. Suddenly, a powerful force of mana descended from above, and Lia's eyes narrowed as a sword materialized in front of him, its blade facing forward, forcefully severing this mana. "Stop!" A shout thundered from the heavens, causing Leah to slow down. He squinted and saw a man in silver armor, spear in hand, rapidly stopping thousands of feet above him. "Without the celestial Tao order, you are not allowed to leave the celestial spirit great world," the silver armor man pronounced, looking down at Leah with a commanding voice. Leah scoffed and asked, "The celestial Tao order? Since when does the celestial spirit great world have such a rule?" He was filled with confusion. For the past 3,000 years, he had been secluded in sword enlightenment, and upon leaving seclusion, he did not hear of any celestial Tao order. But the other's tone, daring to regulate the entire celestial spirit great world, was enough evidence of his extraordinary background, which Leah found ludicrous. The great world had just been reshaped, and such a powerful force had emerged. Could it be that an outer heaven power had descended and ruled the celestial spirit great world in a very short time? The silver armor man replied, "This celestial rule has been established for 1,000 years, set by the Tao court. I advise you not to act rashly. Above me, there is a free immortal who guards. Even if you pass me, you will not reach outer heaven. Should you injure me, it will be seen as a challenge to the Tao court, and you will be doomed never to transcend." The Tao court? Leah frowned. He had only been detached from the mundane for 3,000 years. How had the Tao court suddenly emerged? Upon further thought, he realized that today's great world was vast and boundless. Even 3,000 years ago, his knowledge of the world had been superficial, and he certainly was not aware of its full extent. Perhaps the Tao court was the overlord from another side of the world. What purpose does such a celestial rule serve? To trap all beings within this world? Leah asked mockingly. The silver armor man's brows furrowed and said, "Your sword is no trivial matter, You must be a great power that commands respect. You must have lived from the previous era until now. Let me tell you, a terrible calamity is approaching. It will be the first calamity since the primordial era to affect the entire great world. Going to outer heaven at this time will only lead to one's demise. The Tao Court is looking out for your welfare, wanting to gather the power of the great world to collectively resist the threat from outer heaven. Chapter 572, Disaster Looms. If it had been before, Leah would have certainly barged into the Tao Court's blockade without hesitation. But now, upon hearing the Silver Armor Man speak of an impending disaster, he couldn't help but calm down and ponder carefully. He had a clear memory of the great battle that took place 20,000 years ago, which clearly involved powerhouses from outer heaven. Leah gave the Silver Armor Man a deep look and then turned to fly downwards. The Silver Armor Man watched as Leah disappeared into the sea of clouds and then slowly ascended himself. Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit sat on Leah's shoulder, teasing, "You've actually stopped being reckless. It feels quite unfamiliar to me." Leah snorted, "I'm not in any hurry to leave, and besides, if the world is in trouble, I need to stay and protect the Supreme Sect." Ia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. To reach this point in his life, aside from Guan's protection, the support he had received from the Supreme Sect was substantial, and even now, he still considered himself a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit sighed. "You really have grown up. What's with that tone? You make it sound like you're talking to a junior." Leah immediately pulled Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit down from his shoulder and vigorously kneaded him in his arms. A breeze blew over with the sea of clouds, and as Leah bantered with Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit, he suddenly felt as if nothing had really changed after all. At dawn. Source, web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron New. Guan sat on the eaves, watching the rising sun, his gaze reaching far into the distance. He saw the battle court, searching for the celestial spirit Great World. Because the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had reshaped the Tao rules, the new celestial spirit Great World was temporarily separated from the path of the Great Tao, making it hard for the battle court to directly find the celestial spirit Great World. Nevertheless, through causality calculations, the battle court was getting increasingly closer to the celestial spirit Great World. Immortal Emperor Guan pondered this name. In the memory of the silent destruction God Emperor, the Lord of the War Court was the Immortal Emperor. The Tao practice of this Immortal Emperor was unfathomably profound, and it was uncertain whether he would come this time. He had already sensed the auras of more than a dozen innate golden immortals within the approaching War Court's forces, with more battle court powerhouses arriving continuously. Judging by the situation, they were determined to slaughter all the descendants of the Long clan. Guan wasn't the least bit perturbed. He was, on the contrary, looking forward to the arrival of the great battle, during which he could reap lifespan extensively. Generally, Guan wouldn't engage in slaughter, but if someone threatened him, it was an opportunity to kill righteously and justifiably. "Brother Gu, good morning." Bai Sheng's laughter came from the courtyard, and Guan looked down to see Bai Sheng waving at him. So he smiled and nodded in response. "Are you going to read books again today?" Guan asked. The civil examination was still a while away. It had been a month since they arrived in the imperial city, and every day Bai Sheng would stroll through the city, mainly to find books to read. With Su Jin's help, Bai Sheng had come across quite a bit of money on the way and was now quite wealthy. Bai Sheng laughed. "I'm not reading today. I heard there's an immortal in the city taking disciples, and I want to see if it's a real immortal. Brother Gu, want to come along?" Guan shook his head. "You go ahead. I'm off to find someone for a drink." "You and your drinking." After chatting for a bit, Bai Sheng left with Su Jin. Guan watched Bai Sheng leave, knowing that once the impending disaster in the imperial city was over, it would be his time to leave as well. Having accompanied Bai Sheng for a year, he had scattered his worries, and whatever happened between Bai Sheng and Su Jin in the future, Guan would simply observe from afar. The imperial city bustled day after day. In the eyes of mortals, this imperial dynasty was the most powerful entity in the world, manipulating power, capable of altering heaven and earth. Little did they know, the world is vast, and even the seemingly immovable behemoths can be undone in an instant. If Guan didn't intervene, this imperial dynasty would be annihilated within days, and not even Su Jin in the Nirvana realm could stop it. The impending disaster would change Bai Sheng's mindset, igniting a fiery passion for immortal cultivation like never before. Guan's thoughts drifted away as time rapidly slipped by. Dusk approached. As night neared, lights gradually lit up the city, and the imperial city became even more lively, with the noise reaching Guan's ears. He still sat on the eaves, and following his gaze, billowing dark clouds were rolling toward the imperial city, creating a heavy oppression. At that moment, on another street in the city, Bai Sheng stood on tiptoes in the crowd, looking towards the stage where a Taoist wearing a mask was performing a sword dance, with 5 disciples dressed as demons circling around him. The Taoist's swordplay occasionally sped up, sharp as the wind, eliciting cheers from the onlookers. Bai Sheng didn't notice that Su Jin on his shoulder was looking up at the celestial vault. This demon Qi, Su Jin's eyes revealed a hint of dread. She hadn't expected the imperial city to attract such a terrifying demon. This is not good. She turned her head to look at Bai Sheng and licked his face with her tongue. Stop it. They'll buy you something to eat after I'm done watching. Bai Sheng said casually, his gaze fixed on the stage, filled with curiosity. Su Jin became anxious. She bit Bai Sheng's neck, causing him pain that made him cover his neck with his hand. Without waiting for him to speak, she jumped to the ground and ran outside. There were too many people around, and Bai Sheng, worried she might come harm, could only follow her. After squeezing through the crowd, Bai Sheng saw Su Jin squatting under a tree not far away, and he hurried over. Ew! Just as Bai Sheng was about to scold Su Jin, she suddenly transformed, turning into a woman in a white dress with a bewitching face. This shocked Bai Sheng so much that he instinctively stepped back. Smack! Su Jin grabbed Bai Sheng's wrist and pulled him in front of her. Listen, I'm only going to say this once. Don't scream and shout. A demon is about to descend, and everyone in the city will be devoured by it. I'm no match for it. I can only protect you. You need to come with me now. Su Jin stared at Bai Sheng and spoke solemnly. Then, pulling him, started walking towards the city gate. Wait a minute. Bai Sheng came back to his senses and hurriedly said, trying hard to pull his hand away, but he could not break free from Su Jin's grip. Su Jin turned to look at him, her brow deeply furrowed. Bai Sheng quickly said, even if you can't save the entire city's population, at least bring Brother Gu with us. Su Jin snorted. Why should I bring him? After all, we've been traveling together. We're already like brothers. How could we abandon him? Bai Sheng said in a pleading tone. He didn't care that he was shocked by Su Jin being a demon. He believed Su Jin wouldn't harm him. If she would, he would have been eaten already on their journey. So why wait until today? Fine, Su Jin said impatiently, and then took Bai Sheng to their residence. Boom! The sound of thunder rumbled, but the people inside the imperial city were still unaware of the danger. Within those thunderclouds, a terrifying figure was stirring, and a pair of blood-red eyes loomed over the human world. Suddenly, countless demon birds burst out of the sea of clouds, sweeping toward the imperial city, their flapping sounds merging together, instantly drowning out the city's hubbub and disturbing the citizens. In the woods, an Xian was sitting on a stone by the brook, fiddling with the 6 Paths mirror in her hand. Footsteps approached, and the sect hierarch of Qingquan sect, Xianxia, arrived. His hair was white, but his face still looked young. He was wearing a wide, exquisite robe, and his presence as the head of his sect was hard to conceal. He came behind an Xian, bowed, and said, Predecessor, the Tao court sent people over, claiming that a great calamity is about to come to the world, and all sects must join forces to repel the enemy. They hope that our Qinquan sect will accept the celestial Tao order to coordinate with the Tao court when a calamity arrives. However, this theory of heaven requires the infusion of Qinquan sect's destiny, and I'm somewhat hesitant. And Xian replied, if there is hesitation, then refuse. Lately, she had gained new insights into the Six Paths mirror, and if it weren't for Qingshan's call, she wouldn't have wanted to come out. But the Tao court is powerful, and compared to it, our Qinquan sect is like the light of a rice grain against the brilliance of the moon. If we refuse, won't the Tao court target us? Qingshan asked with a frown, his tone full of worry. If they become enemies just because we're unwilling to cooperate, it means that the Tao court does not have the greatness of spirit to shoulder the world. They just want to take the opportunity to calculate against all sections. Such a sect will sooner or later become an enemy. And Xian said casually as she stood up, turned around to look at Qingshan, and asked, is that all? Qingshan was taken aback and replied, there's one more thing. Someone in the sect has achieved enlightenment and has become crazed. Can you take a look at him? Why not bring him over here? To tell the truth, his cultivation level can be considered top tier within the sect, and we can't handle him. He's locked himself in his cave mansion, raving that the sky is falling. I've never seen him so afraid. I wonder if it has something to do with the calamity mentioned by the Tao court? Qingshan frowned again. There was something else he didn't mention. In fact, these years during cultivation, he too had felt restless with a sense of impending disaster hanging over his head. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 573, Battle Court Mythology, Confronting Destiny in the Early Morning. The sunlight cut through the smoke-filled ruins of the imperial city, where corpses and broken walls stained with bloodstains could be seen everywhere. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng, covered in dust and ash, stood atop the debris, staring at the horrific scenes in all directions, his pupils trembling, unable to accept what was before him. The city he considered the most prosperous had turned into ruins overnight, and the sight of the half-remaining mask of the sword-wielding Taoist head seen earlier touched him even more deeply. How could this happen? Bai Sheng muttered to himself, his voice trembling. He felt as though he was in a nightmare from which he could not awaken. He looked up into the distance, then immediately rushed down, beginning his search for Guan, combing through bodies along the way, fighting back fear and disgust. As the sun continued to rise, reaching high noon, he still hadn't found Guan, his hands now covered in fresh blood. Exhausted, he collapsed onto the street, lacking even the strength to lift his head. After a morning of searching, his heart knew no fear, only numbness. A figure appeared before him. He saw the person's shoes, but couldn't bring himself to speak. Su Jin looked down at Bai Sheng and sighed. Didn't you say you'd rather die in the jaws of demons and ghosts than live a dull life? Last night, you witnessed a great demon that most mortals will never see in their entire lives. Shouldn't you feel fortunate? Bai Sheng hung his head and asked weakly, Are you such a demon as well? Source, web novel. Come, updated on N0 New. Omicron, I do not delight in killing as they do, but I have killed people, killed demons, Su Jin responded, her answer plunging Bai Sheng into silence. Su Jin continued, Since you've witnessed supernatural powers, why not cultivate immortality with me in the future? Help me. Fine, Brother Gu, Bai Sheng struggled to speak, and after uttering those 5 words, he completely lost his strength and fainted, toppling forward. But fortunately, Su Jin caught him in time. Su Jin held Bai Sheng in her arms, a smile appearing on her face. She had fantasized about this moment for 10,000 years and had finally achieved it. Don't worry. In this life, I will surely protect you, just as you desperately protected me 10,000 years ago. Su Jin murmured softly to herself, lifting Bai Sheng up and then soaring into the sky. Her divine sense enveloped the entire city before continuing outward. Strange, where on earth did he go? Could a demon have devoured him? Su Jin wondered aloud to herself, but she didn't dwell on it. After all, she had already searched for Bai Sheng on behalf of him. If he couldn't be found, it wasn't her fault. She flew off into the distance with Bai Sheng in her arms, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The clouds above had scattered, and the sunlight spilled over the devastated imperial city, and gradually, a hint of murky energy began to dissipate. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless. In the courtyard, Guan lay in a rocking chair reading a book, occasionally instructing Xianxia on how to control the Taiqing true fire beneath the artifact refining cauldron. It had been 10 years since he had parted from Bai Sheng. Xianxia turned her head to look at Guan and asked, "Guan, what's the origin of that Tao court?" Within the Qingqun sect, it's widely rumored that the Tao court will become the sect that unifies the entire world. Guan answered casually, "Just like the Holy Court, the Tao court was once the ruler of a part of the great heaven and earth. After the great thousand world was reconstructed, they grew rapidly. Of course, they were able to do this because they had the backing of a highly practiced and powerful being." "How strong is he, compared to you?" Xianxia asked with a raised eyebrow. Guan laughed. "Haven't fought. Hard to say." "Yeah, right, with you talking like that. That person definitely isn't your match." Xianxia rolled her eyes at Guan, who could hear her admiration for him in her heart, amazed by his strength, though her tone suggested otherwise. Guan, while turning the pages of his book, said, "Nevertheless, it's still too early for the Tao court to dream of unifying the celestial spirit great world. How far into the future can you see?" Xianxia asked curiously. In fact, she was extremely curious about Gu An's cultivation level, but had always restrained herself, feeling too embarrassed to ask. Given the chance to probe, she wouldn't miss it. "Don't ask anymore. The will of heaven cannot be revealed." Guan brushed off the question and then turned over his back to Xianxia. Xianxia huffed and then focused on comprehending the Tao treasure within the artifact refining cauldron. Silence returned to the courtyard, with only the occasional wind passing through. The 3 pristine true fire beneath the artifact refining cauldron flickered ceaselessly, as if it would never go out. As it wavered, time swiftly passed by. Spring came and went, and autumn arrived. 500 years had passed. 500 years later, Guan still lay on the same chair, while Xianxia remained seated in front of the artifact refining cauldron. Guan turned over and rose, tucking the green hero travelogue in his chest, picked up the Xianhong sword, and drew it from its scabbard. The sound of the blade sliding from its sheath startled Xianxia. She turned her head towards Guan, watched him handling the sword, and was about to ask what he was doing when suddenly her expression changed, and she looked up sharply. Not just her, everyone in the dojo was alarmed and looked up. Above them, the azure celestial vault began to pepper with black dots, which quickly expanded like black holes, riddling the vault with 1,000 gaping wounds. "What is that?" Xianxia furrowed her brow and asked. Guan did not look up. He gently swung the Xianhong sword, replying, "It's a transcendent force from beyond the great thousand world, known as the Battle Court." The Battle Court? Xianxia had never heard of this name before. She asked in surprise, "Why do all these major sects like to name themselves court? Holy Court, Tao Court, Battle Court. Your book Celestial Court can't possibly be real, can it?" She had always suspected the investiture of the gods and journey to the west to be true, and now, thinking about it, it seemed very possible. After all, Guan's Tao practice was beyond her imagination. It cannot be said, Guan said with a meaningful smile. He was thinking about what sword technique to use to sweep away the battle court. At that moment, he felt something and turned his head towards the distance, a flicker of unusual light in his eyes. He was looking in the direction of the Supreme Sect. At the same time, on the remote Tai-Tsang continent, Candlestar and Yi Tsang appeared beneath Long Qing's attic, while the soul of the heaven-supporting ancestor emerged from within Long Qing's body. He gazed up at the celestial vault, his brow deeply furrowed. "The battle court is truly fearsome," murmured the heaven-supporting ancestor to himself. Candlestar, too, looked up at the celestial vault, his face showing disbelief. The heaven-supporting ancestor turned to him and asked, "Aren't you also from the battle court? I heard you wanted the supreme sect to take the battle court's place?" Yitsong looked at Candlestar as well, detecting the sarcasm in the heaven-supporting ancestor's voice. Taking a deep breath, Candlestar said, "I didn't expect the battle court to have such depths. It seems that the existence has finished its seclusion and has called back those great powers who have been gone for so long. It's odd. He clearly despises the Long clan, and it was just those war gods targeting them," the heaven-supporting ancestor speculated. "After all, even the celestial spirit god has fallen, and yet the battle court still dares to come. It must have some confidence." Candlestar couldn't answer. His heart was in turmoil. The oppressive force of the battle court's arrival made him tremble with fear. He dared not imagine the sight of facing those war gods, especially that existence. That existence was the myth and legend of the battle court. Even though he had reached the profound, yuan-free immortal realm, he had never seen that existence. Clang! The door of the attic flew open, and Long Qing walked out, descending the stairs at a steady pace, his expression calm. A figure abruptly appeared at the base of the stairs. It was Long Qing's son, Long Tongue. "Father, what is the origin of the anomaly in the sky? Why do I feel my chi blood surging uncontrollably? I even feel—" Long Ting asked with a furrowed brow. Long Qing reached the landing and looked down at him. "Even feeling hostility, murderous intentions?" Long Tongue's eyes widened in shock as he pressed. "Father, do you have the same feeling?" Long Qing continued down the stairs, his gaze shifting towards the celestial vault. "Some things are too late to tell you, and there is no need for you to know. Just watch. Just watch. Father, what are you going to do?" Long Tongue's eyebrows knitted again, an intense unease building within him. Long Qing stepped in front of him, giving the unnerving feeling that he could disappear at any moment, which instinctively made Long Tongue reach out, attempting to grasp Long Qing's robe. Candlestar, Yitsong, and the heaven-supporting ancestor, all aware of the Long clan's destiny, kept silent, their eyes fixed on Long Qing. Yitsong clenched his fists tightly, filled with reluctance. He had not expected the battle court to come so swiftly. 500 years was a long time for mortals, but for him, it was insufficient for his cultivation level to break through, far from enough to aid his master. Just feeling the vast oppressive force enveloping heaven and earth told Yitsong that he could not meddle in this karmic destiny. But how would his master face it? Yitsong knew that his own cultivation level was not much higher than his master's, but his master's composure filled him with anticipation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 574. Annihilate completely. The celestial spirit, great world celestial vault was covered with black holes of varying sizes. Every creature within the celestial spirit great world, as long as they looked up at the celestial vault, would see such a phenomenon and become panic-stricken. Since the vast majority of living beings had never witnessed such a phenomenon in their lives, it was inevitable that they would be fearful. All the major sects quickly formed arrays and sent great power cultivators to observe the sky. The vast oppressive force of the battle court enveloped the entire great world, yet no creature from the battle court had appeared. Long Qing took 2 steps forward, looking at the myriad of black holes with an extremely calm expression. He had already prepared himself to die. Long Ting looked at his father's silhouette, unable to resist asking, "Father, what exactly are you planning to do?" Long Qing didn't answer him. The protective formation of the supreme sect rose up, and figures began appearing around the attic. They were either high-ranking individuals of the supreme sect or descendants of the Long family. After Long Qing issued a precautionary command, he no longer spoke, and no matter who asked him, he did not respond. Sar the novel_fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Yitsong looked at his master, feeling extremely distressed. Just then, brilliant lights arose from the horizon, all of them entering the black holes within the celestial vault. The lights entered the black holes and disappeared without causing any disturbance, as if traveling through time and space. Far beyond, in the depths of the universe, a dark purple light path stretching millions of miles was rapidly extending. Figures were walking on the light path, with black holes continuously appearing on both sides. Some figures stepped into the black holes, while others stepped out from within. On this dark purple light path, leading at the front, was a 9-headed flood dragon covered in black dragon scales. Its 9 necks were like mountains, and its 9 dragon heads continuously spewed intense heat waves. Source: web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron now. This dragon was larger than any meteor it passed by, advancing like a creation god mountain, dignified and vast. Following behind, it was an overwhelming march of creatures from the battle court. Humans, demons, and ghostly evils, all moving in the same direction. In the midst of this multitude, a sword cultivator advanced. He wore a red robe tightened at the waist, the sleeves broad. His features were young and handsome, and his hair was snow white. He looked ahead with furrowed brows. His name was Fang Xian, a renowned prodigy of the battle court who possessed the cultivation level of a profound yuan-free immortal. He was shocked by the sight before him. Having lived millions of years, it was his first time seeing the battle court amass such military force. Looking around, the terrifying aura emitted by those figures made him feel alienated. He even doubted if these people were from the battle court. Had he only been in seclusion for several 100,000 years for the battle court to have improved this much? Just to invade a great thousand world, is it necessary to send so many people? I heard that the silent destruction God Emperor fell in that great thousand world, which is why there's such a massive mobilization. What? The silent destruction God Emperor fell? How is that possible? Being such an ancient being, we're going to the celestial spirit great world. This great world has just been reshaped. The world itself poses no threat to us, but there's an extremely terrifying being hiding inside, and it also intends to support the Long clan, which is provoking the battle court. The Long clan? They haven't been completely wiped out? Listening to the discussions around him, Fang Xian's mind conjured up an image of the silent destruction God Emperor. He had only seen the silent destruction God Emperor once when he went to listen to the Emperor's doctrine. In his mind, the silent destruction God Emperor's Tao practice was unfathomable, and even the high level of the battle court were very polite toward him. Such a being had actually fallen. Fang Xian felt uneasy. Although there were a lot of them, the more forces the battle court deployed, the more dangerous he felt this battle would be. The Tao practices of the high-level members of the battle court were beyond his imagination. Those beings certainly saw more than he did. Facing an unknown great battle, how should he ensure his own safety? Just as Fang Xian was lost in chaotic thoughts, from some of the black holes ahead flew out cultivators of the celestial spirit great world. When they saw the unending battle court light path, they were all startled. Before they could speak, nearby creatures from the battle court quickly took action. The great battle had officially commenced. Cultivators from worlds below the Zizai immortal realm had no power to resist. They were directly obliterated. Those with higher cultivation levels hurriedly escaped back into the black holes, through which they returned to the celestial spirit great world. Taoist field of the beginningless. All disciples had gathered in Gu N's courtyard, curious about the celestial phenomena above. Guan didn't say much. With a wave of his sleeve, the blue smoke above the artifact refining cauldron condensed rapidly, forming a large mirror that reflected the majestic sight of the battle court light path. An Xian, Shenzhen, celestial demon child, and Blood Prison Great Saint looked up and were all stunned. On the trans-universal battle court light path, the crowd surged like a tide, the massive beings as large as mountains appearing even more fearsome. Along the end of the battle court light path, a terrifying, huge shadow loomed in the deep darkness, revealing only its upper body as if carrying forward this vast light path single-handedly. The battle court light path in the hand of this huge shadow resembled a sword thrusting forward, a scene that shocked everyone's eyes. Celestial Demon Child couldn't help but turn her head to look at Guin and asked, "Master, who are they?" The others also turned to look at Guin. The usually loquacious Blood Prison Great Saint and Xianxia were also stunned. Facing such a force, they felt only apprehension in their hearts. Guin responded, "This is the battle court, a power from beyond the great thousand world." And Xianxia pressed further, "Why have they come?" The others were also puzzled, waiting for Guin to clarify. Guin did not conceal anything and revealed the grievances between the Long Clan and the battle court. This grudge has lasted for many years. 20,000 years ago, there was an entity known as the Silent Destruction God Emperor who also came for the descendants of the Long Clan, Guin said calmly. Xianxia couldn't help but say, "To usurp their nest and to exterminate them. This Lord of the Battle Court is really not anything good, and by the looks of it, they're likely aiming to take over the celestial spirit great world." The others also started cursing at the battle court, and Xian suddenly thought of something. She looked at Guin and timidly asked, "Master, you granted Long Qing the long surname. Could it be?" As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. They all knew Long Qing, who was personally taken in as a disciple by Guin. And Xian still remembered that Guin had previously refused to guide Long Qing in cultivation because Long Qing carried a great cause and effect. Guin nodded and said, "Yes, Long Qing is indeed a descendant of the Long Clan." Everyone looked at each other after hearing this. Blood Prison Great Saint became excited and asked, "Master, will you take action?" The others also felt invigorated by this. They had practiced arduously in the dojo. The higher their realm, the more they revered Guin's cultivation level. They had always been curious about just how strong Guin was. Surely such a powerful battle court could force Guin to reveal all his strength? It is his destiny. Why should I intervene? Being able to adopt him, I already took a great risk. Guin shook his head and chuckled. The others didn't buy it. In their eyes, Guin would surely protect Long Qing, just as he protected them. Xianxia lamented, "Who knows how many years of cultivation it will take before I can qualify to participate in such a great battle." Scenes of battle appeared in the mirror atop the artifact refining cauldron. Endless cultivators from the celestial spirit great world surged out of the black holes, blocking the battle court's advancement. Today's celestial spirit great world was far beyond the previous era's celestial spirit great heaven and earth, with an astonishingly consolidated power. Xianxia, Chen, and others, seeing endless cultivators and demons entering the battle through the black holes, felt their blood boiling. Guin didn't immediately take action. He saw this calamity as a good thing, letting the beings of the great thousand world feel a sense of crisis. Moreover, this cause and effect had to be ended by the Long family themselves. Guin did not want to publicly tie himself with the Long family on the surface, waiting for Long Qing to be overwhelmed before intervening. On the other side of heaven and earth, Long Qing leaped up, flying towards the black hole in the sky. Candlestar transmitted to him, saying, "Come with me. Facing such a battle court, you have no chance of victory." Long Qing did not respond to him, nor did he look back. Candlestar stood in front of the pavilion, opening his mouth, but he ultimately could not muster the courage to go forward and fight alongside Long Qing. He knew full well the terror of the battle court, and crucially, the strength now displayed by the battle court was even more formidable than he had known. He sensed the determination of the battle court, vowing to completely annihilate the Long clan, right in the celestial spirit great world. Watching Long Qing's figure disappear into the black hole, Longya looked at Long Tongue, anxiously asking, "Big brother, what exactly is father trying to do? Shouldn't we help him?" Long Tongue was about to speak when a sonorous voice echoed through the entire great heaven and earth. "Descendant of the Long clan, you have stood up, and indeed, you have not dishonored the bloodline of the Long clan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 575. Dharma aspect shocks the heavens. The sudden voice plunged the entire celestial spirit great world into silence, and all living beings felt their hearts chill just hearing it. They couldn't imagine what kind of existence could possess such an imposing aura. Candlestar looked up at the celestial vault, his expression somewhat bewildered as he murmured to himself, "Master." He understood that the Lord of the War Court used such terrifying power not only targeting to execute Long Qing, but mainly against the protector of the celestial spirit great world. Thinking of his master facing off against the fearsome being capable of annihilating a celestial spirit god, his emotions were complex. He also thought of the mythological beings of the War Court, fearing that an unprecedented fierce battle was about to occur, one that would reduce the celestial spirit great world to ashes. He turned to look at his disciples, gazing up at the celestial dome in the distance, and couldn't help but sigh. After so many years at the Supreme Sect, he had grown attached to this place. But no amount of attachment was worth more than life itself. He had already forsaken the War Court, and in the face of such a situation, all he could do was flee. He withdrew his gaze and disappeared into thin air in front of the pavilion. Long Tongue, Longya, and the other cultivators around them hadn't expected him to flee. They thought he was going to support Long Qing, so they didn't think too much of it. The heaven-supporting ancestor re-entered Yi Tsong's body. His voice echoed in Yi Tsong's mind. "There are many presences within the War Court that are beyond my match. In the face of such a massive invasion, the celestial spirit great world stands no chance of winning. Candlestar has already fled, and you should leave as well." Upon hearing this, Yi Tsong furrowed his brow, his gaze fixed on the black hole above, on the other side of heaven and earth. With the mountains undulating, Baisheng stepped out of the forest and stood on the hillside, gazing at the spectacular phenomenon in the sky, his brow furrowed deeply, his eyes full of shock. This was the second time in his life that his understanding had been overturned. Su Jin arrived at his side, equally shocked as she looked up at the celestial vault. Bai Sheng turned to look at her and asked, "What is this spectacle? How high is the realm of the person who just spoke? And what's the background of the Long clan?" Su Jin took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure. I can't even guess his realm. You see, I've lived for over 10,000 years, could be influential in the imperial dynasty, but in the grand scheme of the great world, I'm just an inconspicuous minor character. To many of the great powers, killing me would be as simple as crushing an insect. As for the Long clan, I have never heard of them either. My understanding of the great heaven and earth is not as extensive as you imagine." Baisheng couldn't help remarking, "It's indeed true that there are always higher beings. If one day I can make a sound that resonates with all living beings across heaven and earth, then this life would have not been lived in vain." Sorry, the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Su Jin rolled her eyes at him, said with irritation, "You always talk like you are giving your last words. Can't you think about diligently cultivating and pursuing longevity? Is there really such a thing as immortality in this world? Even if one ascends to immortality, as you said, there is still an end to it." "I don't care. You must aim for it anyway." They began to bicker, unaware that this was a calamity sweeping across the entire world. In the vast and boundless universe, myriad black holes of all sizes dotted the cosmos, acting like channels through time and space, with figures emerging from them. Fang Xian walked on the battle court light path, looking ahead at the looming great battle with a calm expression. The celestial spirit great world erupted in astonishing solidarity as more and more figures rushed in to block the advance of the war court. Yet they did not slow down the pace of the war court's forces. Fang Xian didn't rush to take action. On this occasion, he planned to do the bare minimum, and with the most terrifying existences yet to appear, he dared not act. I am a descendant of the Long clan, Long Qing. This causality should be borne by me. Long Qing's voice suddenly came, weak in the vast cosmos, even though he shouted with all his might. Fang Xian caught the sound of Long Qing, with the words Long Clan, making it impossible for him to ignore. A pressure stronger than any of the combatants bore down, halting every living being engaged in the battle. A Taoist, Zhang Zizai, immortal from the celestial spirit great world, showed a look of horror, unable to move under this overwhelming pressure. His pupils suddenly dilated, and following his gaze, an imposing figure in the darkness behind the battle court light path gradually became clearer. Fang Xian's gaze, however, looked in the direction of Long Qing's voice. Long Qing stepped out from a black hole, his right hand raised to his chest, his two fingers together. While moving through the air with floating steps, he was casting divine skills. Streams of gray mist emerged from his body, coalescing into figures around him. Furthermore, the space in the surrounding universe twisted, spontaneously producing more gray mist that continued to solidify into humanoid shapes. More and more gazes fell upon Long Qing, but no one from the war court side made a direct move against him. As Long Qing, who was executing the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, looked into the distance, a giant shadow gradually became clear. It was a black-robed Taoist with a Qilin headdress and a stern face. He floated like a mirage behind the battle court light path, with his lower half seeming illusory, and only his upper half clearly visible. It was the Master of Candlestar, the current Lord of the War Court. His title was the Candle Celestial Monarch. The Candle Celestial Monarch was so immense that everything in the universe seemed trifling in his presence. And to the celestial spirit cultivators witnessing this figure, he appeared as the founding god who created the cosmos. As the Candle Celestial Monarch emerged from the darkness, everyone from the side of the celestial spirit great world, except Long Qing, lost their courage and willingness to fight. It seemed as though the Candle Celestial Monarch had merely leaned forward. He looked down upon Long Qing, observing the Dharma aspects coalescing behind him, with an indifferent gaze, and he said, "Has your esteemed self not shown yourself yet? Could it be that you have given up on the Long clan?" This question likewise echoed throughout the celestial spirit great world. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, an Xian and the others one by one turned their heads to look at Guangu and, holding the Cyan Hong sword, said, "Why look at me? Qing'er's divine skills are not simple. Perhaps he can resolve this on his own." As he spoke, he lifted the blade, his left hand supporting the edge, the tip pointing toward a mirror above the artifact refining cauldron, as if aiming at the Candle Celestial Monarch within it. Hearing this, though more confused, the crowd still turned their heads to look at the scene in the mirror. The world fell silent. All living beings waited for another voice to rise, but it never came. In the cosmic void, as the number of Dharma aspects behind Long Qing grew, the expressions of the powerhouses from the war court changed. In less than 10 breaths' time, the number of Dharma aspects surrounding Long Qing had exceeded 10,000, and one Dharma aspect, towering 10,000 zhang, radiated an aura of contempt for the universe, causing both celestial spirit cultivators and war court warriors to involuntarily fix their gaze on him. Long Yu, the voice of the Candle Celestial Monarch, rose, as if murmuring softly. As soon as his voice fell, figures scattered apart, quickly surrounding Long Qing and his Dharma aspects, each figure emanating an unrivaled aura, using their own powerful presence to seal off Long Qing. Those celestial spirit cultivators who were suppressed by the Candle Celestial Monarch vanished into ash. Only cultivators far away survived, and those who had come forth from the black holes as reinforcements all stopped in their tracks, their attention entirely on Longqing. The Dharma aspects summoned by Longqing each radiated a brilliant light, converging into a sparkling region in the universe. Those dozen or so war court powerhouses were scattered around, as if enacting some kind of elusive formation to block the strong light emitted by the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Such a rich force of karma. To summon so many powerful Dharma aspects with such cultivation level, the Long clan is indeed extraordinary. If that's all there is, it's not worth us joining hands. Perhaps the existence behind him has already fled. No one can afford the karma of acting against a celestial god. This divine skill seems to utilize bloodline karma. The war court powerhouses discussed among themselves, completely disregarding Longqing. The distant candle celestial monarch did the same, whether it was despicable of what stood behind Longqing or contempt for Longqing himself. Listening to the voices from all around, Longqing took a deep breath, his eyes sharpened, and his face began to crack open as blood seeped out. The gray aura around him suddenly turned into a bloody one, and an even more terrifying figure rapidly took shape, as if a giant stood up behind him, quickly growing larger, surpassing the Dharma aspect, known as Longyu by the Candle Celestial Monarch. Upon seeing this Dharma aspect figure, the eyes of the Candle Celestial Monarch suddenly changed. "Kill him." The voice of the Candle Celestial Monarch rose, and as soon as the words were spoken, the war court powerhouses encircling Longqing all made their move, with the force of thunder. The terrifying pressure coming from all directions made Longqing feel as if he were being torn apart. Yet, he did not die. He looked up to see 100,000 zhang tall, blood-colored figure wielding a long spear with one hand, fending off the powerful mana coming at him from every direction. This blood-colored figure was clad in armor, his true face obscured, but he emanated an unrivaled and imperious aura. His appearance made everyone from the war court tense up. In the sea of people, Fang Xian's pupils trembled, and his heart was hit by a storm of shock. The cultivators of the celestial spirit great world were similarly dumbstruck. In that moment, even within the great heaven and earth, all living beings could see a blood-colored figure reflected in the celestial vault, towering high into the sky. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 576, Celestial Destruction God, Greater Cause, and Effect. Looking at the blood-colored figure behind Longqing, everyone from the battle court was shocked, for the figure's aura was immensely powerful, especially the spear in its hand, which emanated an extremely dangerous aura that seemed capable of collapsing the entire universe. Amid countless Dharma aspects, the blood-colored figure stood like Mount Tai, surveying the surrounding peaks, shocking even Longqing. In Longqing's mind, the strongest should have been Emperor Longqing. He had managed to manifest the figure of Emperor Longqing, which was that enormous figure. Yet, Emperor Longqing appeared so weak in front of this blood-colored figure. After mastering the celestial dragon technique, Longqing dared not casually manifest his Dharma aspect, as he only had one chance. This was his first encounter with a blood-colored figure. Somehow, he knew the name of this figure. Longmia. Longqing had heard this name before, the grandson of Emperor Longqing, the son of Longjun. He had heard Longjun boast that Longmia possessed the strongest talent within the Long clan. But after seeing the figure of Emperor Longqing, he believed Emperor Longqing was the strongest. Today, he truly understood how terrifying the strongest figure of the Long clan could be. Longqing's skin continuously cracked open, and blood incessantly seeped out. He quickly turned into a bloody figure, but his eyes were so bright. With his own strength, Longmia demonstrated power that dominated the current battlefield against numerous strong members of the battle court. From afar, Candle Celestial Monarch watched Longmia, frowning deeply. 10. Innate golden immortals actually couldn't destroy this Dharma aspect. What was the origin of this Dharma aspect? The innate golden immortals who were casting spells were equally shocked. Their power was enough to destroy the universe. But they concentrated their mana together, trying their best not to affect the heavenly Tao. Yet, the existence they targeted would suffer a more intense impact. However, Long Mai's Dharma aspect easily resisted their attacks. How could they remain calm? Long Qing struggled to lift his right hand, and in an instant, the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect holding the spear pushed forward, vigorously repelling several innate golden immortals and causing airwaves that shook the battle court light path. Almost instantly, all Dharma aspects surged like arrows, rushing toward the battle court light path. Long Qing was still performing the celestial dragon technique, continuously manifesting Dharma aspects and joining the battle, while the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect continued to guard behind Long Qing. Everyone retreat. A great cultivator from the Tao court loudly commanded, and with someone leading, other hesitating cultivators quickly retreated to observe from a distance. The Long clan's Dharma aspects, like a grand army, swiftly advanced onto the battle court light path, as more and more battle court cultivators joined the fight. Fang Xian drew his sword, ready for battle, his gaze fixated on the blood-colored figure of Long Mie, his heart filled with astonishment. A loose immortal could summon such a formidable entity. Was this the Long clan? He had always failed to understand why the upper ranks of the battle court insisted on completely annihilating the Long clan. But now he understood. Facing such an enemy, it was indeed necessary to eliminate them completely. However, another thought uncontrollably popped into his mind. How did these high-level individuals snatch the battle court from the Long clan? As Fang Xian was lost in thought, a sword light streaked over his head, powerfully colliding with space, striking the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, which still defended with the spear in its hand. Two formidable forces collided, creating shockwaves that caused distant celestial spirit cultivators watching the battle to vanish in smoke and dust, while cultivators from the battle court side were protected by a force of destiny, spared from disaster. From afar, an energy barrier enveloped the battle court light path, defending against all impacts. In Taoist field of the beginningless, within a courtyard, everyone intently stared at the artifact refining Cauldron's mirror, watching the power standoff between Dragon Annihilation's Dharma aspect and Candle's Celestial Monarch, secretly terrified at the immense power before them, where every existing being between the two seemed insignificant. Furthermore, Candle's Celestial Monarch's aura could even reach into Celestial Spirit Great World. They were fine, protected by the dojo, but the outer environment trembled, a catastrophe for mortal spirits. An Exine involuntarily looked at Guan, noting her master was still calmly watching the battle, and she was puzzled. "Master, why aren't you taking action yet? This isn't like him, and moreover, this calamity originates from Qing Air. He certainly won't stand by idly." Could it be that Master has already planned a response? It must be so. Master is always like this, claiming indifference, yet always ends up intervening. With that thought, and Zin's confusion cleared, replaced by exhilaration. In her heart, her master had always possessed great compassion to protect all living beings, and she had witnessed it many times. Even if Master wanted to leave, he would just disguise his identity and hide in another part of the world, showing that at heart, Master couldn't sever his ties to this land. Guan stared at the image in the mirror, hearing the thoughts of the crowd, especially those of an Exan. He felt both relieved and helpless. He was relieved that an Exan had always trusted him, but he felt helpless because his image in Zin's mind was too great. Guan indeed had a strategy to cope. This calamity, originating from the grudge and karma of the Long clan, was different from previous calamities. It was a disaster of the Long family, triggered by his reincarnation body, and he would naturally resolve it. However, he would not do so as Guan, but as Long Zhan. In this calamity, He would not let the innocent die. The more evil the battle court behaved, the more it would provoke his desire to kill. His pupils flickered with a peculiar purple-golden flame. Have you already joined them? Guin stared at the dragon annihilation dharma aspect in the mirror and muttered to himself. He felt the aura of the heavenly Tao emanating from the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. This aura was similar to that of the celestial spirit god and the celestial extreme god. No wonder Long Mia could escape the karma of the Long clan. It turned out that a stronger force was shielding him from karma. But this time was different. Long Qing was using the karma from bloodlines, and as long as Long Mia did not change his physical body, the karma attached to the bloodline would still exist. Candle's celestial monarch, being in the late stage of innate golden immortal realm and joined by 16 other innate golden immortals, was strangely unable to defeat the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Guin was curious about what cultivation level Long Mai's true self had reached now. Additionally, Guin noticed that these innate golden immortals had a different kind of destiny aura from the battle court. They originated from the battle court, but they bore the destiny of other forces, more intense. This meant these innate golden immortals had other backgrounds. It seemed there were other calculations behind this battle. Guin began to look forward to the appearance of the immortal emperor. As for getting involved in more trouble, Guin was not too concerned. This battle would certainly allow him to reap a tremendous lifespan, and perhaps after some time, he would break through to a higher realm. On the vast earth, countless fierce beasts were slaughtering each other. The ground split open, blood flowed into rivers, and corpses were countless. The fierce ground battle continued, but the celestial vault was extraordinarily bright, with stacked clouds making the celestial vault appear even more expansive. A towering figure clad in blood armor stood proudly among the clouds. His hands hung naturally, his shoulder armor resembled a dragon, and his white hair fluttered in the wind, with a blood flower mark on his forehead. His face was handsome, but his gaze was so indifferent. He looked down at the slaughter below, his expression unchanged, but the reflection of Long Qing employing the celestial dragon technique flickered in his pupils. His figure was identical to the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Next to him stood a long spear, the body of the spear covered in blood scales, the spearhead like the claw of a true dragon, its tip refracting a cold light. A figure leapt up and landed beside him. This was a cyan-robed Taoist, standing on a red gourd, bearing an air of immortality and wearing a cynically amused smile. Celestial Destruction God, someone else is using your power again? How long will you protect them? The cyan-robed Taoist asked teasingly. Celestial Destruction God's expression remained indifferent as he calmly said, "It's not exactly using. That's their own capability." The cyan-robed Taoist raised his hand and drew a circle in front of him, revealing an illusion reflecting the battle outside the celestial spirit great world. The dragon annihilation dharma aspect was so eye-catching. At its feet, a strong light gathered around Long Qing, who was continuously consolidating the dharma aspect. The continuous dharma aspect assaulted the battle court light path, with Candle Celestial Monarch stepping over from above, continuously approaching the dragon annihilation dharma aspect. Those 16 innate golden immortals surrounded the dragon annihilation dharma aspect, endlessly displaying divine skills and spells, shaking the entire universe. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The edges of the universe displayed twisting rainbows. The tremors were from the great Tao. So many innate golden immortals attacking a loose immortal, quite extravagant. Without your power, this guy would have died long ago. Does this still count as his capability? The cyan-robed Taoist asked, half smiling. Celestial Destruction God was silent for a moment before saying, "This is a divine skill called Celestial Dragon Technique created by my grandfather. It gathers all those with bloodline karma through the bloodline, allowing them to form dharma aspects to fight on their behalf. This child has summoned so many dharma aspects. His lifespan will be exhausted. This is his last battle. Last battle? I doubt it. You always say this, yet you always end up intervening. Without your intervention, the Long clan would have perished long ago. The cyan-robed Taoist shook his head. To this, celestial destruction god did not respond. The cyan-robed Taoist continued, "It won't be long before you can break through and reach a higher realm. Your immortal position could be promoted, and if you could be transferred back to the 3,000 great worlds, you would be able to protect your descendants." The reflection of Candle, celestial monarch, gleamed in celestial destruction god's eyes. His gaze so cold, he watched Candle, celestial monarch, continuously destroying the celestial dragon Dharma aspects, approaching his own Dharma aspect. This time, fate might be hard to escape. With even stronger beings approaching, celestial destruction god solemnly said, pausing momentarily before adding, "No matter, with me here, the bloodline can continue. When I return, I will let these folks experience the most painful torment of the Great Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 577, Ancestral Dragon War, the sword that cleaved the universe in the universe's void that constantly shimmered with bright light. The Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect wielded the gun Shadow in its hand, blocking divine skills attacks from all directions, manifesting an unstoppable aura. More and more battle court powerhouses joined the surrounding attack, spreading out in different directions, beginning to form their formations with a majestic momentum. Above the head of the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, clouds of light tumbled, where dragon and phoenix phantoms intertwined, as if another dazzling heaven and earth were descending. As the number of battle court powerhouses involved in the battle sword, the aftermath grew rapidly stronger, with continuous black holes being annihilated, forcing celestial spirit cultivators to either flee back into black holes or retreat at full speed. The fleeing cultivators looked back, unable to conceal the horror on their faces. That person called Long Qing, who exactly is he? His cultivation level aura is clearly just a loose immortal. I've never heard of him, but the divine skills he's using are too terrifying. No wonder he has provoked so many powerful beings. So, in addition to chi absorption cultivation, cultivating divine skills can also lead to attainment. Since those guys are targeting that person called Long Qing, we indeed should not get involved. Today's battle has truly been an eye-opener for us. Within the great world, we swagger and dominate, but in outer heaven, there are far too many existences stronger than us. The celestial spirit cultivators discussed while fleeing. Today's battle, they would never forget the name Long Qing. On the other side, the Candle Celestial Monarch had already arrived in front of the circle surrounded by innate golden immortals. He retrieved a golden pestle from his sleeves, which connected with 9 golden chains and had a silver-blue gem embedded at the bottom. As it shook, a strange power of the great Tao burst forth, causing all living beings in the universe to feel dizzy. Source: web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron Newsero. Zero Long Qing maintained the gesture of deploying the celestial dragon technique, his body covered in blood, with bare white bones faintly visible on his elbow and shoulder. Staring at the golden pestle in the hands of the Candle Celestial Monarch, Long Qing felt a strong sense of dread, and seeing that the other Dharma aspects could not shake the battle court light path, he felt desolate. I've already exerted my full strength, even summoning the most powerful ancestors. Why am I still unable to overcome them? Long Qing fell into confusion. Before the battle, he had been full of confidence, determined to face death. But when he actually faced the battle court, only then did he realize why his clan met such fate. Just thinking of Long Tongue, Xianxia, and other descendants, he felt unprecedented fear. He had not yet had the chance to sever the connections with his descendants. If he died, they would have to die too. Even the entire celestial spirit great world might be destroyed. Long Qing's eyes filled with hatred. He would not allow such a thing to happen. Battle Court. Long Qing gritted his teeth and growled lowly. His blood energy surged, and the aura of the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect suddenly increased. The Candle Celestial Monarch noticed his anomaly, immediately swinging the golden pestle in his hand, with a burst of golden light accompanied by a scorching heat wave enveloping Long Qing and the Dharma aspects. In an instant, countless Dharma aspects were successively annihilated, leaving only Long Qing's skeleton, and his soul body also appeared. The Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect moved 1 foot backward, in a posture fully resisting. Outside the formation, all the battle court cultivators watched this scene, their faces showing frantic excitement. Feng Xian was also like this, staring at the golden pestle, his eyes burning hot. It was the battle court's treasure, known as the war god golden pestle, a treasure that all cultivators of the battle court yearned for. The war god golden pestle made the entire universe bright. Stars rapidly burned. Tao's spiritual qi was burned into a hot mist. This golden light seemed capable of burning everything away. The Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect shook its arm. The gun shadow in its hand burst forth with terrifying blood energy, transforming into thousands of blood dragons, dispersing the vast golden light, rushing first to attack the Candle Celestial Monarch. The Candle Celestial Monarch's eyes turned cold. He leaped up, raising the war god golden pestle high, and smashed it down towards the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, his figure no less than the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, his high position giving him an incredibly terrifying aura. Sir, the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The figure of the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect was reflected in the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world, and as the Candle Celestial Monarch leaped above the head of the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, his silhouette was also seen by the beings of the celestial spirit great world. This scene caused all living beings to tremble in fear, no matter where they were. Witnessing this scene, their eyelids jumped wildly. Bang! The Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect raised its spear for a stab. The light cloud above was directly dispersed. Great magical power carrying a blood wind ascended, as if intending to pierce through the top of the universe. The Candle Celestial Monarch held the war god golden pestle to block the blood wind. But only for a moment. The Candle Celestial Monarch exploded with a sudden and violent storm of attacks, the war god golden pestle quickly swinging, and the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect similarly swung the gun shadow in its hand. Myriad illusions burst forth. As if two worlds were colliding, the earth and mountains shattered, ocean straits were destroyed, celestial beasts roared as they rushed towards each other, both vanishing into illusion. Various fantastical scenes unfolded, dazzling the observers. This was a collision of two Tao fruit worlds, a confrontation of the Tao, as the Tao generates all things. Their every move contained myriad changes. The battle court cultivators watching were equally dumbfounded. Unable to approach, they were barely holding on maintaining the formation outside. Below the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect, Long Qing, with only his soul attached to his skeleton, still retained his will. He could no longer see clearly what was around him. Everything in his eyes was shaking, his vision increasingly blurry. He struggled to think of his children, but his will was pulled down by an unprecedented heaviness. Just as he was about to despair, he instinctively thought of a figure. Master, above the sea of clouds, the celestial destruction god and the cyan-robed Taoist were still watching the battle in the illusion. The cyan-robed Taoist clicked his tongue in wonder. He's about to give in. Your Dharma aspect is dispersing. Following his gaze, although the Dragon Annihilation Dharma aspect in the illusion was still maintaining its attack, the blood light on its body was dimming. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 577. Ancestral Dragon War, the sword that cleaved the universe, underscore 2, the celestial destruction god, did not make a sound, but the coldness in his eyes grew more intense. Descendant, is this all you can achieve? Asterisk, the celestial destruction god pondered silently. Although he spoke of protecting the Long family if he was present, he understood in his heart that if Long Qing's lineage perished, the Long clan would cease to exist. After attaining the immortal class, he severed his ties with the mortal world. The reason he continued to protect his descendants was merely due to a fixation in his heart. He was unwilling to see the Long clan meet such a fate, but unfortunately, he could not personally aid the Long clan. Asterisk, at that moment, a brilliant light burst forth in the apparition, erupting from the feet of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, or rather, it was Long Qing who was radiating the light. Long Qing's soul body shone with an exceptionally bright white light. His flesh began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his will was also being restored. Asterisk, he was still thinking of his mentor when he suddenly felt a miraculous power burst from the depths of his soul body, different from the pain induced by the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. This power made him feel extremely comfortable, sweeping away his pain and fatigue. Asterisk, the candle celestial monarch seemed to sense it and quickly retreated. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect also stopped its actions. The 16 innate golden immortals presiding over the grand formation felt immense pressure, an invisible force pushing them back. They widened their eyes, their gaze fixed on Long Qing. Numerous cultivators from the battle court also looked towards Long Qing. Everyone watched as the intense light on Long Qing's body began to condense into a figure. This figure rapidly grew taller. The dragon annihilation Dharma aspect disintegrated, transforming into an endless stream of blood energy that surrounded this new Dharma aspect. The blood energy quickly faded from red. Fang Xian watched this figure rapidly rise, his heart pounding wildly. Asterisk, his intuition told him that the terrifying presence he feared most was about to reveal itself. Asterisk, because the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect was reflected in the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world. All living beings could see the new Dharma aspect. This new Dharma aspect shone with white light all over, quickly growing to the same size as the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect. Compared to the destructive aura of the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect, the aura of this Dharma aspect was even more vast and majestic, as if it hailed from the source of time, overlooking all transformations on the great Tao, within the Taoist field of the beginningless. An Xian, celestial demon child, and others watched more clearly through the mirror on the artifact refining cauldron. They all turned their heads to look at Guan, their expressions peculiar. LV Xian couldn't hold back and was the first to ask, "Master, isn't that Dharma aspect you?" The Dharma aspect condensing from Long Qing was in the form of Long Zhan. Although the attire's outline was different from Gu An's, the posture and facial features were extremely similar to Guan. And how could it be such a coincidence? Long Qing was also Gu An's disciple. Wasn't it said that the celestial dragon Dharma aspect could only summon his ancestors? Shunjin murmured. Her voice was light, but in everyone's ears, it was like a thunderclap. Could Gu be Long Qing's ancestor? The blood prison great saint's eyes lit up, and he instantly believed it. Following Gu in for so many years, seeing countless orphans, he had never seen Gu in taken anyone else, and he had long noticed how much Long Qing resembled Gu and remained calm, still staring at the mirror, merely having sheathed the Cyan Hong's sword into its scabbard. Seeing that he was unwilling to speak, everyone could only refocus their gaze on the mirror. When the Dharma aspect on Long Qing thoroughly solidified, the terrifying pressure enveloping the celestial spirit great world rapidly dissipated, and all living beings breathed a sigh of relief. On the edge of the Tai Tsang continent, the waves crashed against the shore. Leah stood on the edge of a cliff, looking up at the celestial vault, his pupils trembling. Junior brother Gu, Leah did not know the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, but he immediately recognized that the Dharma aspect resembled Gu, and Junior Brother Gu had saved the world once again. So Junior Brother Gu had never left. At this moment, Leah felt a strong fighting spirit arise. Junior Brother Gu had not left, so he could not leave either. He resolved to stay in the celestial spirit great world to protect all living beings. As for Zhang Buku, he had no leads to search for, so he decided it would be better to find them after attaining the Tao. Elsewhere, Bai Sheng looked up at the towering Dharma aspect, his expression peculiar. For some reason, he found this figure somewhat familiar. Su Jin, however, did not think too much about it. Guan had not left a profound impression in her memory. She had disliked Guan from the beginning and naturally would not hold him in her heart. On the other side of the human world, on a barren plain, a man wrapped in a large robe walked through the wind and sand. He looked up and saw the massive Dharma aspect on the celestial vault. A look of shock appeared on his weathered face, but it quickly gave way to a smile. Guan, you're indeed still here. Martial resolution murmured to himself, then bowed his head, continuing to move forward against the wind and sand. Having glimpsed Guan, his heart was completely at ease. The heavens would not collapse, and he could continue pursuing his destiny. The gaze of all living beings was focused on Gu An's Dharma aspect. Aside from Gu An's old acquaintances, the multitude of beings felt hope. At the first sight of this Dharma aspect, all beings felt a profound peace. This feeling was peculiar, yet it truly existed. Long Qing slowly raised his head to look and then stood there dumbfounded. After 2 breaths' time, he suddenly turned around and soared into the air. When he arrived in front of the Dharma aspect, he was completely stunned. A name surfaced in his mind. Longzhan, CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He had heard of Longzhan's name, the true primordial ancestor of the Long clan, the ancient existence that truly established the battle court, while Emperor Longxin merely inherited his legacy. He had actually summoned the primordial ancestor. But that wasn't the most crucial part. What shocked him was how much the primordial ancestor's face resembled his mentor's. No, it wasn't just a resemblance. It was his mentor. Suddenly, he realized, and all his doubts were dispelled. Why did his mentor choose to adopt him? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 577 Ancestral Dragon War, the sword that cleaved the universe _3 Master. Why do you want to help him fight against the silent destruction god Emperor? He suddenly became excited, enveloped by a huge surprise, trembling all over. The Long clan actually has such an ancestor. The voice of Candle, celestial monarch, came through, filled with emotion. Just the dragon annihilation Dharma aspect alone was troublesome enough for him, and now the emergence of an even more daunting Dharma aspect gave him a chilling sense of an unbeatable adversary. He trusted his intuition. Master, it's time for you to make a move. The voice of Candle's celestial monarch rose again, teasing in tone. All the cultivators of the battle court looked towards Candle, celestial monarch, almost every one of them showing a bit of astonishment. In the hearts of the vast majority of battle court cultivators, Candle Celestial Monarch was the strongest, and they had not expected him to have brought along his master. The master of the Lord of the War Court. Could it be that ancient myth? As Candle Celestial Monarch's words fell, a gigantic pair of eyes suddenly appeared in the darkness of the void behind him, looming over the entire battlefield. The stature of Candle Celestial Monarch was colossal, taller than any mountain in the world, yet before these eyes, he was less significant than their pupils. Faced with these eyes, every creature felt panic. The celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world also revealed these eyes, causing all beings to tremble with fear, unable to comprehend what the heavens and the earth were facing. They could only focus on Gu An's Dharma aspect. Perhaps this mysterious existence could protect them. Longqing turned around and was equally frightened by the silhouette behind Candle, celestial monarch. What kind of eyes were those? He had lived for 20,000 years, and, with the experiences of his previous life, had never seen such terrifying eyes, like the abyss of the universe, hiding the utmost horror and despair. He is not the person I am looking for. He is just an effect and cause Dharma aspect. A voice of cold indifference echoed through the universe, audible to all the myriad beings of the great thousand world. Each word trembled the hearts of all beings, as if the supreme heavenly Tao was declaring the laws of heaven. Candle's celestial monarch was about to speak, but another voice interrupted his thoughts. The one you seek may well be me. All the cultivators of the battle court turned their heads in unison, including the innate golden immortals and even those celestial spirit cultivators watching from the distant void. The voice came from the Dharma aspect behind Longqing. Longqing turned and clenched his excited fists tightly. That was his master's voice. Chapter 578, Reverse Cause and Effect, Annihilate Battle Court Candle, Celestial Monarch, Immortal Emperor Extinguished. All the cultivators from the battle court were unable to accept this reality, and they all stared blankly at the sword light spanning the universe. They could not move, the scene before them sending chills down their spines, driving them to despair. Feng Xian stood in the void, his eyes wide open, the universe trembling in his eyes. His heartbeat was so intense. It's over. Feng Xian fell into an abyss of despair. Since entering this universe, he had speculated that the battle court might fail, but he never imagined that Candle Celestial Monarch and Immortal Emperor would be so powerless to defend themselves. Just who was that divine figure? How high was their cultivation level? Feng Xian glanced at the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect on Longqing's body, filled with shock. All beings in the universe looked toward the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect with disbelief in their eyes. And although the beings in the celestial spirit great world didn't know the specifics of the battle, the disappearance of those mysterious giant eyes gave rise to hopes in their hearts. Could it be a victory? Longqing had seen his master win many times before, but each victory still scared him. Just how profound was his master's Tao practice? It felt like no matter how strong the opponent, they were effortlessly defeated before his master. Karma retribution, no one can escape it. Today, the battle court sought to exterminate my Long clan. I will exterminate the battle court in return. With but a single swing of my sword, life and death are your own fate. You should all feel fortunate, for if you face the battle court, you wouldn't even have a chance to live. The voice of Guan rang out once more, plunging all the battle court cultivators into the depths of despair. Without giving them time to think, the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect lifted its sword and slashed horizontally. A sword light swept across all directions, passing over the battle court light path, over the battle court cultivators surrounding Longqing. 16 innate golden immortals turned to ash first. The other cultivators met the same end. Longqing looked around to see the spectacle of enemies being extinguished everywhere, a sight tremendously grand. At the same time, inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, prompts kept popping up before Guan. You have successfully stolen 309,872,265 years of lifespan from Zhenren Qinyang, early stage of innate golden immortal realm. You have successfully stolen 870,928,711 years of lifespan from Xingxing Dao, middle stage of innate golden immortal realm. You have successfully stolen 1,087,249,720 years of lifespan from Yi Yuelon, early stage of innate golden immortal realm. Watching the prompts before his eyes, the corners of Gu An's mouth curled up. The strength of the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect was not solely attributed to the profound mysteries of the Celestial Dragon Dharma aspect, but also to Gu An's own power. After all, he intended to steal lifespan, so he poured his own power into the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect to make the strike through it. And XN, LV Xian, and others turned their heads toward Guan, seeing him with a slight smile. Everyone could feel his triumphant spirit. People couldn't help but reveal looks of adoration and fervor. Blood Prison Great Saint even couldn't help but shout in excitement, breaking the silence of the courtyard. My heavens! One sword strike to annihilate the battle court? Master, what swordsmanship was that just now? Master, exactly who are you within the Long clan? That's just inconceivable. The person who appeared just now seemed so terrifying, yet they couldn't withstand a single strike from the master. Guan didn't respond. He was immersed in the joy brought about by the surge in his lifespan. The Dragon Battle Dharma aspect with a single strike exterminated 70% of the beings of the battle court, leaving the 30% who harbored no karmic enmity with the Long clan. These beings, terrified out of their wits, would also leave the battle court in the future. This was the way of cause and effect. Through karmic deduction, Guan knew which people could be spared. In doing so, he could also seem less bloodthirsty, thereby concealing his ability to take lifespan. But soon Guan noticed something was amiss. Many of the deceased battle court cultivators had not brought him lifespan, but those 16 innate golden immortals had brought him over 800 billion years of lifespan this time. You cannot escape. The battle court must be eradicated. Guan thought silently, his eyes transforming, turning into the immortal emperor's eye. Everyone in the courtyard saw the change in Guan's eyes, and they all stopped their discussions, curiously watching him. Let all beings treat it as if it were just a dream. Guan's voice sounded, and the immortal emperor's eye burst forth with a peculiar purple light, illuminating the faces of everyone in the courtyard. All beings between heaven and earth were like this, their vision of the world shrouded in purple light. This purple light burst forth from the celestial spirit great world and swept across the entire cosmos. This was the first time Guan used his immortal emperor's divine power. Didn't you say that person was just a heaven-balancing, golden immortal? Why couldn't I even withstand one of his moves? The immortal emperor demanded in a deep voice, his tone barely concealing his murderous intent. The mist around the meteor quickened its pace, and a cold voice emerged. I miscalculated. Miscalculated? My 16 disciples, having no destiny with the battle court, died utterly, and 7 among them had supreme potential for the Abyss Dao Sea. Compared to me, they were still so young to die in that great thousand world. Do you understand what that means to me? The immortal emperor spoke through gritted teeth, a gray mist more ominous than that surrounding the meteor emanating from his body, like blazing flames. It's not like I forced you. You were drawn in by the treasures of the immortal palace, weren't you? The icy voice sounded again. You. Just as the immortal emperor was about to continue, a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder, freezing his expression. Before he could turn his head, the hand on his shoulder squeezed forcefully, turning him into ashes as the figure of Guan appeared. You have successfully seized 18,208,547 years of lifespan from the immortal emperor, late stage of heaven-balancing golden immortal realm. Guan looked disdainfully at the notification that popped up before him. Not even as much as the lifespan of an innate golden immortal. The seized lifespan was about 1/10 of the victim's remaining lifespan, meaning the immortal emperor could have lived another 1 to 200 million years. Named immortal, it signified he had lived an exceedingly long age. Perhaps it was precisely because he sensed his time running out that the immortal emperor had not even as much lifetime left as the smallest part of the lifespans of those 7 innate golden immortals. Those 7 innate golden immortals had brought Guan more than 700 billion years of lifespan, meaning each of these 7 had at least 100 billion years of lifespan. According to Guan's observations, An innate golden immortal should have a lifespan ranging from 5 trillion years. Gu N's thoughts flashed by in an instant as he looked unflinchingly at the silvery white meteor before him. Who exactly are you to find this place? Have you reached the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm? The previously cold voice speaking to the immortal emperor resonated once more, this time with a tinge of nervousness. Guin slowly raised his right hand, forming a claw, and pulled a figure out from within the meteor, his throat smashing against Gu An's palm. This was an elder wearing a gray robe, his face gaunt, his white hair tied back, more presentable than the immortal emperor, but the terror on his face made him appear disheveled and weak before Gu and fellow Taoist. Let's talk this out. The gray-cloaked elder gritted his teeth and said, I hail from the Abyss Tao Sea. If I were to die, they will surely notice. The so-called Immortal Palace was also a palace belonging to the Celestial Court. How the news of the Immortal Palace's treasure was leaked was something Xianxia had no idea about. He only knew the clues to the Immortal Palace's treasure. The celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had already perished, but the whereabouts of the Immortal Palace's treasure remained unknown. Guin surmised that the celestial spirit Immortal Venerable had left the Immortal Palace's treasure to Anhao. Although Anhao had perished, he was a being born of the destiny fostered by heaven and earth, destined to be reborn one day. However, at that time, he might no longer be Anhao, but become someone else. Guin was quite interested in the Abyss Tao Sea, having encountered this place when he had chosen to break through his lifespan. In Xianxia's memory, the Abyss Tao Sea did not belong to the Great Thousand World, but lay in a mysterious region beyond it, an ocean formed by the Tao rules, boundless and vast. It was said that since its birth, the Abyss Tao Sea had been expanding infinitely and had not stopped until now. Even Xianxia, who was born from the Abyss Tao Sea, did not know its full extent. As Guin was searching Xianxia's memory, a series of footsteps could be heard. The hall was vast, and at the far end, a strong light was visible. Candle Celestial Monarch stepped out from the brilliance, his figure flickering rapidly as he advanced toward Guin suddenly. He stopped walking, frowning as he looked at Gu An's back figure. Gu An's attire was different from the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect, so he didn't recognize him immediately. He didn't even associate Guin with the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect, considering how far this place was from the celestial spirit Great World. How could the one who killed him come back to life faster than him, when he had just been resurrected? Who are you? Candle Celestial Monarch frowned and asked. Although the Immortal Emperor was often in seclusion, he always received fellow Taoists, and the Immortal Emperor's disciples were numerous too. His divine sense couldn't come close to Guin, and he couldn't see the scene in front of Guin slowly turn around. And it was then that Candle Celestial Monarch saw the person Gu and was holding in his hand. Candle Celestial Monarch's pupils contracted sharply, instinctively drawing out the war god golden pestle. He remembered Xianxia, an ancient presence, whom the Immortal Emperor treated with notable respect, leaving a deep impression on him. Candle Celestial Monarch wanted to ask more, but Guin spat out a word, interrupting him, die. Candle Celestial Monarch's eyes widened, and he instantly turned into a mist of blood. Longevity, true words. This was Gu An's Tao, fruit divine power, using the power of cause and effect to determine Candle Celestial Monarch's death, possessing the subtlety of speaking and making it so. Following that, the Xianxia in Gu N's hands also turned to ash, and his gaze shifted to the outside of the hall. Numerous palaces entered his view, countless marvelous sights and mythical beasts were taken in by his eyes. The colossal entities that dominated many universes were about to become illusory in Gu An's eyes. Everything that belongs to Long Zhan should come to an end. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 580. Descending into the Abyss Tao Sea Battle Court, as a transcendent power above the great thousand world, had countless creatures under its command, many of whom were compelled to serve. Guan even saw numerous races enslaved, mining cultivation resources for battle court. He stood in the grand hall of the immortal emperor and drew the Cyan Hong sword from his waist. Although the Cyan Hong sword was just an ordinary treasure sword, it was his favorite because it was a gift from Yilan. He swung the sword forward casually, effortlessly, yet with that very strike, he severed the destiny of battle court. He began to eradicate those creatures of the Long clan who harbored resentment, using the power of karma. He simply needed to calculate who would target the Long clan afterwards. In addition to these, Guan also dealt with those battle court creatures who had committed excessive killings. The number of creatures under battle court was vast, and to kill them all would undoubtedly bring great trouble, especially if it provoked the celestial court. Although Guan's Tao practice was profound, he was yet unable to deduce the karma of celestial court. With the power of karma, the enemy was killed invisibly. As the destiny of battle court collapsed, palaces, cities, and towers standing in the starry sky began to crumble. Many creatures tried to flee, but their vision blurred, and their consciousness plunged into darkness. They died, their Tao perished. The disaster came so suddenly that all the deceased had no time to react. Those cultivators who had just been revived through the destiny of battle court were still discussing the terrifying nature of the dragon battle dharma aspect when they perished in succession. Those cultivators who died later suffered the most, despair assaulting their spirits. They were helpless and could only wait. A loud uproar erupted from battle court, but soon the noise disappeared. The universe gradually darkened, heralding the quiet death of a massive entity born from the Tao rules. Fang Xian suddenly opened his eyes, panting heavily, covered in sweat, his bloodshot eyes filled with fear. He sat up and turned his head, finding himself in a desolate mountain. The sparse spiritual energy here made him instantly realize this was a mortal realm. Am I not dead? Fang Xian was overjoyed. If he had died and was now revived, he should have been inside battle court. This meant his adversary had spared him a path to life. Even if he could revive inside battle court, Fang Xian did not want to die, as it would diminish his cultivation level and destiny. Thinking of the heavy losses in battle court, Fang Xian felt that its vital energy was severely damaged, and it might face attacks from other enemies later on. Battle court, no return. Fang Xian felt that the terrifying entity from the celestial spirit great world would continue to retaliate against battle court. He stood up, the sunlight falling on him, giving him a feeling of rebirth. The higher-ups of battle court are too foolish to provoke such beings. I need to seek a new way to survive, Fang Xian murmured to himself, still shivering from the thought of the previous battle. He dared not be an enemy of that terrifying entity any longer, hoping only to be as far from it as possible. He leaped toward a direction, soaring through the sky like a startled swan, disappearing in an instant. Taoist field of the beginningless, in the courtyard, Guan stood before an artifact refining cauldron, observing the Tao treasures inside. Celestial demon child stood by his side, curiously watching him. Half a month had passed since the destruction of battle court. All beings felt as if they had dreamt it all. After this calamity, the various sects of the celestial spirit great world felt pressure and no longer acted so carelessly. The whole world initiated a trend of seclusion. Master, is battle court truly extinct? Celestial demon child couldn't help asking. Guan casually responded, whether it's extinct or not, what does it have to do with you? Focus on your cultivation. The cultivators outside are now striving harder than ever. He thought about breaking through. After this battle, it was time for him to break through. He brought up his attribute panel to take a look. Saw the Oval Fire at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Name, Guan, lifespan, 22-098/831-008, 678, 146, physique, primordial reincarnation, undying body, cultivation level, Tai Ching golden immortal realm perfection, 8,300,000,000,000 years of lifespan. This battle had increased his lifespan by 6,700,000,000,000 years, surpassing 20,000 years of labor. Not only that, but he had also scoured many treasures from the battle court. He planned to distribute half into the celestial spirit great world as opportunities for all beings. To eliminate the grudges for the Long Clan, he had wiped out all beings within the battle court that could potentially threaten the Long Clan. The number was vast, stirring emotions within him. Though the beings of the battle court hadn't been annihilated, from now on, the battle court would be no more. Guan could feel many strong forces of cause and effect approaching the celestial spirit great world, mostly out of curiosity. The destruction of the battle court ultimately drew the attention of many powerful forces. I will work hard to cultivate, but I don't know how many years it will take to reach the Zizai immortal realm. The more I cultivate, the more I feel the gap between us. How many years have you lived exactly? The celestial demon child asked wistfully, a frequent topic of private discussion among them. Everyone felt that when they met Guan, he already possessed his current strength, as they had never seen him in disarray. Not to mention disarray, they had never even seen Guan look anxious. With such an invincible cultivation level, it was indeed difficult to be nervous. Guan turned to look at the celestial demon child and rubbed her head without saying anything. He merely answered in his heart, "Actually, I'm not much older than you." The celestial demon child continued chattering. She seemed to have an endless stream of questions to ask. As long as it didn't involve his own cultivation level, Guan would answer patiently. His mind, however, was already drifting to breakthroughs. 8,300,000,000,000 years of lifespan. Should that be enough for him to break through to a higher realm? He hesitated over whether to wait for the new function after 1,000,000,000,000 years, but thinking about those powers pressing close to the celestial spirit great world, he felt he couldn't wait. A breakthrough must come first. Guan's expression hardened, deciding to break through tonight. In the following time, disciples from the dojo paid him visits one after another, keeping the courtyard lively. As the sun set and the moon rose, Guan spoke to Xianxia, who was guarding the artifact refining cauldron, and then walked out of the courtyard. Under the moonlight, the Taoist field of the beginningless was adorned with numerous medicine gardens and some spectacular trees. Some were surrounded by faint glimmers, others twisted their vines, vibrant and full of life. Guan walked along, enjoying the scenery of the dojo. He was quite pleased with the ghost mother of ephemera. She not only helped increase production, but also made the dojo more beautiful. Having a delightful environment was always a benefit. Reaching the edge of the dojo, Guan stopped by a lake and began initiating his lifespan breakthrough. You have activated the lifespan breakthrough function based on your current realm. Select from the following breakthrough locations. 1. Path of the Great Tao. 2. Celestial Extreme, 9 heavens. 3. Abyss Tao. 4. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 5. Ling Mountain. 6. Endless Jade Pool. 7. Immortal Cave Heaven. 8. Sea of Suffering. 9. Taiwei Great World. Seeing the option for the Abyss Tao Sea, Guan suddenly became intrigued. It had only been a month, and perhaps the Abyss Tao Sea hadn't yet dealt with Jinren and Ai's death. If he attempted his breakthrough there and created a significant disturbance, the Abyss Tao Sea might put Jinren and Ai's death out of their minds. After all, the lifespan breakthrough would send him to a temporarily safe location, and with the protection of the lifespan barrier, he should be fine. According to Jinren and Ai's memories, the Abyss Tao Sea was boundlessly vast. The place he would arrive was likely far from any power. Having thought it through, Guan made his choice. Transporting to the Abyss Tao Sea requires 10 billion years of lifespan. Continue. Guan then felt a bout of dizziness, and his vision blurred. He patiently waited, excited about the prospect of surpassing the Tai Ching golden immortal realm and reaching an unprecedented realm. Having lived for over 20,000 years, there were few things that could excite him these days, but growing stronger always made him happy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. To cultivate his own faction over the long years, the Immortal Emperor nurtured 16 innate golden immortals, all of exceptional caliber for various realms, 7 of whom were qualified to become Taoist emperors. Guan gazed at the Abyss Emperor's city from afar, recalling Jinren Ni Heist memories of it. After watching for a while, he shifted his gaze in other directions. He could feel other powerful destinies. Abyss Emperor City was not the most powerful force in the Abyss Dao Sea. If he had been born in the Abyss Dao Sea, he wondered how many years he would have to struggle before he could break free. Guan had previously followed causality to the battle court, and then used the Taoist celestial net step to arrive at the battle court in a few steps. But the Abyss Dao Sea was different. The Dao rules here were stronger, and Guan could not use the Taoist celestial net step to step out in one go. He could only come and go freely within the sea. Suddenly, Guan spotted a colossal creature amidst the boundless spirit mist, a tremendous koan surrounded by tens of thousands of worlds, continuously radiating spiritual energy into these worlds. Some of these worlds even contained the aura of the Taoist Xianxia immortal. Because the distance was too far, Guan could not use lifespan detection, but could sense it through his hard eye. This koan was at the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm perfection in cultivation level, and in those worlds, all beings were unaware of its existence. Even powerful beings like the Taoist Xianxia immortal could not jump to outer heaven. Guan felt deeply moved. One is shackled from birth. No matter the realm one reaches, there are always worlds constraining a person. He sat down on the spot and opened his attribute panel, directly investing 10 billion years of lifespan into the 2 characters for cultivation level. A prompt immediately popped up. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 500 million years. You used the Taoist dominator skill with great achievement to forcefully challenge the Daluo Dao fruit, beginning the crossing the tribulation, but you did not survive the Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist, resulting in a failed crossing the tribulation. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 1 billion years. You use the Taoist dominator skill with great achievement to forcefully challenge the Daluo Dao fruit, beginning the crossing the tribulation, but you did not survive the Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist, resulting in a failed crossing the tribulation. Daluo Dao fruit. Luo immortal tribulation where all laws exist, crossing the tribulation every 500 million years. Guan's spirits surged. Could the mythological Daluo immortal really exist? Soon, all the prompts settled down, ending in failure. Guan was not discouraged. He continued to invest lifespan. Another 10 billion followed after the first 100 billion. Chapter 582. An unprecedented golden age. Guan hadn't immediately left after his breakthrough. Instead, he stood within the lifespan barrier and began to observe the Abyss Dao Sea. After reaching the level of a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, the Abyss Dao Sea appeared much clearer in Guan's eyes. The number of worlds and beings within the Abyss Dao Sea far exceeded those in the universe where the celestial spirit Great World was located, and by more than tenfold. CTH novel_fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Stronger Dao rules, more opportunities for creation. This was enough to nurture even more terrifying entities. As a mere heaven-opening Daluo immortal, Guan had already located 3 others, one residing in the Abyss Emperor City, and the others hidden in the shadows. In places with independent consciousness, conflicts easily arose, and these three heaven-opening Daluo immortals were clearly not united. Their destinies hindered each other, dividing the central region of the Abyss Dao Sea into three parts. Besides observing the forces within the Abyss Dao Sea, Guan was also curious about the creations in this place. There were many peculiar races living there, some invisible to the naked eye, existing within the Tao itself, and others were beings formed by thousands of meteors converging together, constantly changing shapes. Bizarre and marvelous, a plethora of new and strange phenomena assaulted Guan's hard eye. Seeing new things also allowed Gu to deepen his understanding of the Tao. As a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, the essence of his mana was completely different from that of a golden immortal, contrasted as starkly as cloud and mud. Although there was more creation and profound mystery from being a Taiqing golden immortal to a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, what Guan felt most was sheer power. Pure power. Physical body, soul, senses, mana, etc. No aspect was lacking. Powerful in every way. A Taiqing golden immortal couldn't possibly annihilate a heaven-opening Daluo immortal. Yes, it was simply impossible. The disparity in life essence was too enormous. After this breakthrough, Guan felt he could relax for a while and enjoy the power of being a heaven-opening Daluo immortal. Of course, this so-called relaxation was still predicated on having finished gathering medicinal herbs. Even having reached the state of a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, Guan did not want to stop his path to becoming stronger. Heaven-opening Daluo immortal was still not enough. Guan stood within the lifespan barrier, gazing for a long time, before finally choosing to teleport back. Above, many powerful figures flashed by, none noticing Guan's departure.